American comics, turning into Athena, traveling through Marvel and transforming into a girl, fortunately inheriting the broken godhead of Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom in Greek mythology. When encountering a crisis, turn into the goddess of war wisdom, wear noble and gorgeous sacred clothes, hold the scepter of the goddess of victory and the shield of justice, form a saint warrior to protect yourself, create a sanctuary, and stand tall in the heavenly city and against all invading enemies. Tear the sky, smash the earth. 88 saints fought passionately for the goddess and the enemy, killing all hypocritical gods and demons who covet the world. Kyle will lead his saints to the top of the universe, surpassing the 5 major gods and becoming the main god. Chapter 1. The Lord God Athena in a detached house on Queens Boulevard, New York. Kyle stood in front of the mirror with a weird face. Inside the mirror was an extremely beautiful blonde girl with exquisite facial features, soft and narrow eyes, blue pupils, and a perfect tall figure, as if created by God himself. Same. But Kyle's mood at this time is complicated. He, now, or she, Kyle Isabella woke up from a purebred man, somehow took over this body and came to this world. In the lobby, the voice of the entertainment news host on the TV could still be faintly heard. Last night, Tony Stark joined hands with the model cover 3 girls to haunt his luxury villa in Los Angeles. The next morning, 2 of the naked girls were kicked out of the villa. Hearing this, Kyle's mood became more complicated. Not only did she become a woman through time travel, but she also came to this damned world. Marvel. There are countless powerful civilizations and races in this universe, as well as gods, demons, evil gods of dimensions, etc. The worldview is extremely magnificent. In various major events in the future, various superheroes and supervillains will appear one after another. A blood-boiling war. Let countless Marvel fans yearn for. But it was just yearning. Kyle was unwilling to come to this dangerous world from the beginning to the end, and it was New York, a chaotic city that rivaled Gotham. With her appearance, the chance of accidents is not small at all. One of the most important reasons why she was able to travel through and occupy this body was that she was targeted by an LSP demon, who valued the girl's pure soul, but the girl was scared to death, so she took advantage of it. It's just that this cheap price doesn't seem so easy to pick up. The girl is gone. The question is the devil still staring at her? Kyle sighed. At this time, she was already thinking about planning to set off to find Kamatage, and hope that Gui and those mages could help. It's really impossible to help Waishandi to work. Anyway, it's time to learn from the big guy Gui. As long as she is strong enough, she can prostitute for nothing. And at this moment, Kyle found the mirror in front of him. The world seemed to be upside down and chaotic, and time seemed to be frozen at this moment. A vast, magnificent, divine permeation that cannot be described in words. In Kyle's beautiful blue pupils, there was a holy and great majesty. Suddenly, her eyes flashed, as if she had come to a vast, colorful world. A river of endless stars and bright stars flows under the feet, and in the river of stars, a group of beautiful elves like dolphins are happily wandering. From time to time, there was a nice and melodious call. Kyle was amazed by the beauty of this starry sky and wondered why she appeared here, but her eyes were attracted by a beautiful statue in front of her. This is like a woman holding a scepter and a shield. Her face cannot be seen clearly. She is wearing a gorgeous, beautiful and majestic silver white and gold armor and helmet, and a pair of golden wings like a cloak on the back. Every part fits perfectly, and the combination of pattern and battle skirt shows the greatness, sacredness, and dignity like a god. Although the face was blurry, so that Kyle could not see clearly, but she felt that this must be an extremely beautiful goddess. She stared blankly at the goddess statue in front of her, and there seemed to be a voice in the dark that attracted her. She, by accident, walked slowly on the long river made up of stars and walked to the statue step by step. Her eyes were empty, and she stretched out her white hand to touch the goddess' cheek. Boom! In the next second, endless sacred light shone, and a kind of information that only gods could comprehend and understand was poured into Kyle's mind. In a trance, Kyle seemed to see the heroic and beautiful female warrior on the plain, holding high the spear of justice, long sword and shield, and riding a steed, facing the Lord God who controls the thunder in the sky, and the who controls the sea and in the distance. The beautiful face is full of determination. But then these disappeared, and a gentle female voice came. Ah, pure souls still of strange worlds. The follow-up voice was too small for Kyle to hear clearly. Inexplicably, she wanted to continue listening, but her eyes lit up again, and the originally frozen time began to pass normally. With the familiar mirror in the living room, she returned to her own house. In front of the mirror, Kyle found that there seemed to be a slight change in himself in the mirror at this time, and his temperament became more holy. After comprehending the information that appeared out of thin air in her mind, she showed a smile of excitement and joy. The godhead of Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom. That is to say, I don't have to work for Waishandi. That's right, the scene that just appeared is her spiritual world, and the goddess statue that appeared there is the godhead of Athena, one of the 12 main gods. Kyle doesn't know why he has the godhead of Athena, but there is no doubt, which means that she already has the capital to gain a foothold in this universe. Godhead is something that only gods can be born. It is the crystallization made by the fusion of various skills, knowledge, spells, and the original laws of the world that God possesses with power, and the godhead in Kyle's spiritual world belongs to the main Athena. In other words, as long as she has divine power, she can slowly absorb everything in the crystal and gradually become a god, and even in the end, she can reach the level of Athena. Athena is one of the 12 main gods, of the same level as Zeus, the king of the gods. This level of is not the cowardly Zeus in the Marvel world who only dared to hide in the city of omniscience, but the real creator gods, in the Marvel universe, are also relatively eternal, death, and other levels of existence. But the problem is that this godhead is not complete, and the divine power inside is very scarce. Now Kyle is in an embarrassing situation. She only has the godhead, but she doesn't have enough divine power to support her to become stronger. She is still the mortal body. She is not an innate like Athena. If she is not strong enough to match the body, power, and position, she is not qualified to spy on and obtain the power of knowledge in the godhead. To put it bluntly, she has a huge treasure and a key, but she couldn't push the door to the treasure. If you want to practice step by step, you don't know how much time it will take. Kyle closed her eyes and thought about it. After a while, she opened her eyes, looked at the pair of blue pupils in the mirror, and murmured, "Maybe I need a big scene." Chapter 2. The sanctuary comes in addition to step-by-step practice and gradual transformation to obtain divine power. There is another kind of belief. The gods will show their strength and kindness to the believers, attracting believers to believe in them. The gods bless the believers, and the believers will contribute their own beliefs, and the gods absorb the beliefs and transform them into divine power. Smiley face. Kyle, who has a godhead, can naturally do the same. As long as she absorbs enough faith and transforms it into divine power, she can become a real in a very short time. These divine powers should be enough. Athens, the capital and largest city of the Hellenic Republic, is located in the southeast of Greece, on the Mediterranean coast, the capital of ancient Greece, and the city has a population of 3.15 million people. At the same time, it is also one of the oldest cities in continental Europe. Its history can be traced back to 3,000 years ago. In ancient Greek, Athens is the name of Athena, the of war and wisdom. It is known as the cradle and origin of Western civilization. There are countless historical relics and buildings in Athens, the most famous of which is the Parthenon, which was built to celebrate Athens' victory over the Persian invaders, and a statue of the goddess Athena, which is about 10 meters high, is enshrined. All kinds of utensils, exquisite gold ornaments and figure statues vividly show the splendid culture of Greece in various historical periods, which can be called a microcosm of the history of ancient Greece. Greece has a rich history and a tradition of belief in Greek mythology. Tourists from all over the world also come to Athens to see this historic city and temple. The broken buildings, statues, and stone pillars depict the beliefs and civilizations of the ancient Greeks, and countless people can't help but explore the once glorious history. On this day, people in the city of Athens lived as usual, going to work, hanging out, and wandering the streets with their families and children. Many tourists with backpacks and cameras hanging around their necks from all over the world took pictures of Greece with smiles on their faces. The blue sky and soft sunshine mean that today will be a beautiful day. However, in the Parthenon temple, countless sightseeing tourists suddenly discovered that there seemed to be unexpected changes in the Parthenon temple. The ground of the Parthenon temple began to vibrate faintly. When the tourists and the security guards guarding the temple thought that this was a normal earthquake, the next unimaginable scene appeared. Boom! The original blue sky suddenly changed color, dark clouds gathered, and the mighty clouds kept rolling, which conveyed a thick and depressing atmosphere. When people in the whole city of Athens raised their heads to look at the sky strangely, above the sky, there seemed to be here the chanting and music that runs through history. Crisp and crisp, the holy lyre and the traditional Greek dance complement each other, and the mighty and loud girl singing seems to be telling something. Everyone was shocked by this sudden and wonderful change. People don't know what's going on here. Where does the music and singing that seem to penetrate the soul come from? What is the celestial change in that second? Before people had time to think about it, they heard a boom in their ears. The Parthenon temple suddenly burst into bright golden light, and the dazzling golden beam shot straight into the sky and passed through the thick deposit in an instant. Under the influence of this vast and sacred golden beam, the dark cloud turned into a vortex and twirled crazily. A monstrous will that seemed to come from ancient times pervaded the entire city of Athens. Heavy pressure on the hearts of the people of Athens. What happened? Is a storm coming? Oh, goddess, please bless your people, bless your believers, and keep all disasters away. That's the Parthenon? What happened to that golden beam of light? Could it be that the ancient goddess is about to be revived? It must be that the gods have revived, and the gods have descended into the world. People in the city of Athens stared blankly at the piercing golden beam of light in the direction of the Parthenon temple. Many believers who believed in the goddess Athena immediately knelt down on the ground, prayed devoutly in a low voice, and dedicated their sincere beliefs. The tourists were horrified and ran towards the temple one after another, taking pictures of this precious picture with their mobile phones and cameras while running. These tourists are very smart, although they don't know, but such a sudden miraculous scene is posted on social media, it will inevitably earn a lot of traffic. Even if it is provided to major media, it will get a lot of money. At this time, the piercing golden beam of light slowly dissipated, but the golden radiance stored in the sky suddenly exploded, and the golden ripples swept across the four directions like waves, infecting the dark clouded sky into a golden ocean. Small golden particles slowly float down from the ocean, like golden snow falling, beautiful, gorgeous, and beautiful. People stretched out their hands, and those golden particles melted into their palms. At the moment of melting, everyone felt that their bodies seemed to be warm. The tired spirit was repaired and became radiant. When people wanted to sigh, suddenly, exclamations came from the city of Athens. Look, what's that? Many people looked up subconsciously along the line of sight. Their pupils narrowed suddenly, and they saw under the golden ocean, in the golden sky, an ancient and mysterious city phantom stood quietly. The huge city, the carved stone pillars, and the magnificent statues are dazzling. But this ancient city seems to have experienced a great war. The original majestic building has been dilapidated. The top floor of the building has collapsed. The statues and stone pillars have been severely damaged, even broken at the middle, and the reliefs have been severely degraded. Only from the colonnade, the magnificence and glory of the city can be vaguely seen. But what attracts people's attention the most is above the city. A beautiful girl is floating, holding her hands on her chest, closing her eyes as if praying, wearing white cloth wrapped around her body, dancing with the wind. Her feet, she also wore sandals with straps wrapped around her. The golden hair flutters, with a laurel wreath that symbolizes flowers. What a beautiful girl. I don't know why, but the people in Athens have an inexplicable feeling in their hearts. She is the believed by the Greeks, the goddess of war and wisdom, Athena. Chapter 3. The arrival of Athena. Athena. She must be Athena. Has the great goddess Athena finally descended? Goddess Athena, have you finally heard the prayers of your followers? I have been loyal and prayed every day for a lifetime, and you have not abandoned your people. Athena, is that the legendary city where the goddess Athena lives? But how did it become like that? Is it true that the main city was broken because of the battle of the gods as described in the myths and legends? Damn the gods! Great goddess, please wake up. The pious believers knelt down on the ground and shouted loudly, angry at the despicable and shameless gods, angry at the calculations and means of those gods against the goddess Athena. In Diancheng, most people kneel down. Only some do not believe in gods, and foreign tourists look up at the sky, hoping to see the appearance of the goddess clearly with modern technology. It's a pity that no matter how they shoot, the picture is blurry. They can see the face of the god, but they can't remember it clearly either. The face of the gods cannot be seen by mortals. This is the rule. The scene of people kneeling on the streets and shouting piously in the entire city of Athens was extremely shocking, and the loud shouts resounded through the sky. Perhaps because the shouts had an effect, the goddess floating above the city slowly opened her eyes. Wong. The moment the goddess opened her eyes, a vast and divine power spread instantly, sweeping across the entire city of Athens. It also silences the noisy people immediately. Under the golden ocean, the floating golden particles freeze in place. The goddess looks down at all beings with her eyes that are indescribably beautiful, Her red lips are slightly parted, and her ethereal female voice resounds through the city and reaches people's ears. Am I back? Just a few words, containing doubts. After a few seconds, as if she was in deep thought, the goddess looked at the phantom of the city below and sighed. She stretched out her white jade hand, and the scepter symbolizing victory was lightly tapped in the air. The dazzling divine light shone, and the phantom of the city dissipated. The ethereal voice sounded again. A new war is coming. My strength has disappeared in the battle of the gods. I will fall into a deep sleep, and the world will be in flames of war. My people, I need your help, and human beings also need to have their own. The power of. Here, I will leave a mark, and it will select 88 warriors from among you who will wear holy clothes and protect the world. The voice fell. The goddess let go, and the scepter of victory turned into a dazzling star and fell towards the Parthenon. There was a loud boom, and as the dust and golden radiance scattered, the scepter happened to stand in the center of the temple square, emitting a shining divine light, making it impossible for people to approach. Only pure, brave, and righteous children can gain the power of the stars and become warriors who protect the world. The ethereal female voice surrounds the sky, shaking the soul every word. A few short words seem to have exhausted the power of the goddess. The goddess closed her eyes, and the golden ocean that infested the sky rolled towards the goddess. Finally, in the piercing light, the goddess disappeared. The tumbling dark clouds also dissipated within a few seconds, and the light illuminated the land again. People raised their heads and stood there in a daze, without speaking for a long time. I don't know how long it has passed. Finally, in the city, a young and immature boy knelt beside his father and asked expectantly, "Mom, Dad, Grandpa, can I also be a warrior who protects the world?" In the child's innocent cry, the father, mother, and grandfather next to him came back to their senses. Their eyes were full of admiration for the goddess. They pulled the child to stand up and then said firmly, "Of course, the goddess has shown mercy and has not abandoned her. People, the Parthenon is so brave. He will surely become a great warrior." The child called Parthenon has a serious face, and his young heart is deeply imprinted with the appearance of a great goddess. Although he is small, he has an obsession, that is, he wants to protect the goddess. He didn't want to see the goddess worrying and sighing. After the family stood up, they walked firmly towards the Parthenon temple. They hoped that their children could become warriors who protect the earth from the goddess, and that would be the glory of the family. Not only the Parthenon family, but most of the God-believing families in the entire city of Athens walked towards the Parthenon temple with firm belief. They didn't know what war Athena was talking about, but the appearance of Athena awakened the faith in people's hearts. They once doubted the gods and wondered whether there were really gods in this world, but Athena's awakening broke the question at all. People have re-established their beliefs. A person with faith will give everything for the gods he believes in, because they know that Athena will not be a stingy and benevolent god. She has kindness and justice that other gods do not have. For the goddess, for the homeland, they will make every effort. It was also this day that was written into the history of mankind, and people of later generations called it the day when they opened up the cognition of gods. Similarly, it was also this day that let the world know that there are really gods in this world. One of the 12 main gods of Greece, Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, revealed a vision in Athens and sent down a proverb, strictly selecting 88 warriors of the goddess. The pictures captured at that time almost detonated the internet all over the world in just 24 hours. When I saw the pictures taken from different angles one after another, and the goddesses whose faces were blurred at all, and the power that showed the amazing moment, the world was shocked. People couldn't believe that Athena actually existed. This simply subverts people's worldview. You must know that the most mainstream people on Earth now are atheists. This group occupies a huge portion of the planet. However, the appearance of Athena has completely broken this argument. Obviously, it has triggered a worldwide discussion. Chapter 4. God's guards, it's fake. It must be fake. It must be a method created by those stupid Greeks. They hope to use this method to attract the attention of the world, attract tourists, and attract investment to increase Greece's GDP. It can't be fake. There are hundreds of shooting angles, and they all come from different countries all over the world. Is Greece trying to bribe so many people to come up with a trick? I believe the coming of Athena is real. That's right. I haven't heard that goddess Athena wants to choose God's warriors, and it's in the Parthenon temple. If it is fake, once it is exposed, it will be a huge scandal. It can even be thrown internationally. Superior. Omega. If the goddess Athena is real, then the gods in mythology are also real? The gods of Olympus also exist? Zeus, the king of gods, the of the sea, the of the underworld, and the of the sun? I already dizzy. I can't imagine how terrifying a world with so many gods is. Didn't you hear the goddess talking about the battle of the gods? Even Athena, one of the 12 main gods, seemed to have been severely injured and fell into a deep sleep. Think about the ending of the other gods. Maybe a lot of them died. This time Athens, maybe it was just an accident that goddess now woke up. Fortunately, it's the goddess Athena. If it were those cruel gods, the earth would probably be doomed. No matter what, I'm going to Athens, and I want to be the guardian warrior of the goddess. I have a pure soul, a brave and righteous heart, and I'm too qualified for this. Heh, your skin is thicker than that of my neighbor Uncle John's butt. You can tell me that. Obviously, I am the one who meets the requirements. I am the warrior of the goddess. The internet around the world sparked discussions about the Greek gods, and incidentally, Nordic mythology and Eastern mythology also started to be discussed. This carnival feast turned this matter into a worldwide discussion. All countries in the world, as well as some huge forces in various countries, have also made moves. The most joyful one is naturally Greece. This is a belonging to Greece, and she is also a benevolent goddess of wisdom. Her divine brilliance will surely shine on Greece, not to mention the future. Just now the scepter inserted in the Parthenon temple. Smiley face. Enough to attract the attention of the world. This is a challenge, but also an opportunity. As the saying goes, if you are close to the water, you get the moon first. If the selected god warriors belong to Greek children, then Greece's international status will naturally be improved accordingly. The appearance of the main Athena made the somewhat dead situation on the earth become chaotic. But Kyle, who made all this, walks on the edge of the cliff of the Sea of Love, overlooking the beautiful ocean, feeling full of joy. Just like her plan, she communicated with the only remaining divine power in the godhead and came to the birthplace of Greek mythology. She was also the most loyal to Athena and had the most believers in Athens, so she chose to manifest herself in public. Not surprisingly, in just one day, she has acquired a large number of beliefs. From a perspective that ordinary people cannot see, Kyle can see the brilliance of faith floating from all over the world all the time, constantly sinking into her spiritual world and being absorbed by the Godhead. Godhead has the ability to transform beliefs. This large amount of power of faith has supplemented the divine power in the Godhead, but the supplement is not much. Because Athena is the main god, her divine power is of a frighteningly high quality. The vast majority of the population of Greece, plus the beliefs contributed by new believers all over the world, can only transform the Godhead into a ray of divine power. But this ray of divine power is enough for Kyle's next plan. She needs to improve herself. The divine power of communication was mobilized, and in an instant, Kyle's body began to be washed and transformed by the divine power. Kyle's delicate body shook suddenly, and he began to float involuntarily. He closed his eyes and felt the changes in his body silently. The scattered gravel under the feet seemed to be affected and suspended together, and the surrounding trees, flowers, and plants kept shaking their branches and leaves, as if celebrating the birth of a great god. Kyle didn't see this, because she seemed to be in a dark and empty space now. In this place, there was no light, no wind, no concept of time, and everything was so lonely. I don't know how long it has passed. This space keeps shrinking, squeezing, and finally there was an earth-shattering huge explosion. Boom. The ripples produced by this huge explosion swept across the boundless space. Time passed, and bright and dazzling stars appeared one after another. This huge explosion of the universe also means that a small universe of Kyle was born. Warm, kind, holy, and heroic. A series of small universes with noble qualities seem to be constantly burning and expanding. The surface of Kyle's body gradually glows with golden light. Under the holy light, the surrounding trees cheer, the swaying branches and leaves continue to grow. The gifts from the birth of the gods have brought extraordinary changes to these ordinary trees and flowers. As if they had given birth to wisdom, they automatically bent down towards Kyle. And Kyle opened his eyes. The noble blue eyes contained like a vast starry sky. Boom. The vast and majestic aura filled the air in an instant. The earth shook, and the sky quaked. But this aura only lasted for a short second before it was withdrawn. Kyle raised his hands and gently clenched his fists, feeling the power in his body that could easily destroy a planet. She smiled. Her smile was bright and beautiful. Just a meager ray of divine power allowed me to fully reach the seventh sense. The power at the level of the main is so powerful that it is unimaginable. Similarly, Kal understands that for of this level, every time he breaks through, there is a huge difference. The main faces the opponents of the gods under the main god, basically in seconds. Unless he is Kuei. Kyle, who has reached the 7th sense, already has the ability to protect herself, but next, she needs more faith, and she needs to choose her own guards, saints. Every has its own army, and she is no exception. It is too stupid to fight alone, and every saint fighter has infinite possibilities, and the cost is just a little time and effort. Does anyone see it? Chapter 5. Odin's shock and gaffe at the same time. In the distant Asgard, the magnificent hall is full of magnificence. On the throne, Odin, known as the king of the gods, is sitting upright with Gungnir, the eternal gun, talking to the ministers. Beside Odin is his queen Frigg. Below, Thor, who is known as Thor, is wearing armor and asked his father Odin to take an army to fight in the 9 realms. He wants to deal with a rebel who has recently ravaged the 9 realms. As the ruler of the 9 realms, Odin naturally wouldn't stop him. Just as he was about to speak, a divine light flashed in one of his eyes, and he stood up abruptly. A ray of breath belonging to the king of gods spread throughout the fairy palace. Odin raised his head and looked towards the direction belonging to the earth. His voice was full of shock, and he murmured in a low voice, "How did those guys from Olympus come to the earth? And I've never felt that kind of breath before." Odin's sudden action caught the attention of everyone present. They looked at the God King in surprise, especially when they noticed the God King's expression. What is it that makes this ruler of the 9 realms so moved? Could it be that the frost giants rebelled again? Or is the dark elves sweeping again? Or is the flame giant restless again? On the other hand, Odin's second son, Loki, known as the of Deceit, frowned silently. He knew that his old father and king could not be moved by ordinary things, even such a gaffe. I believe that something must have happened that shocked him. What exactly is it? How interesting, Loki thought to himself. The eldest son Saul was straightforward and asked immediately, "Father, what happened?" Odin. Frigga held Odin's hand from the side, calling softly to her husband who seemed to be in deep thought. Awakened by the sound of his wife calling, Odin lowered his head and looked at the puzzled Asgard warriors in the hall below. He did not explain, raised the eternal gun Gungnir and tapped it lightly, with unquestionable force. The voice said, "In the name of Odin, I agree to Thor's request." The voice passed to everyone's ears, and everyone's expressions immediately became serious. Odin's words continued, "Sol, you lead an army to clear the rebels, and you must restore peace to the 9 realms. Loki, Sif, and Fandral will assist you." "Yes, Father King, God King." After everyone responded, Odin took the lead to leave regardless of the remaining doubts in everyone's hearts. Frigga took a gentle look at Sol and Loki, who were full of excitement, nodded with the latter, and followed her husband's footsteps. Sol. Fandral, one of the 3 warriors of Asgard, wanted to remind Sol. Unexpectedly, before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Sol, who could no longer restrain his fighting spirit. "Guys, we will fight side by side with those rebels who destroy the peace of the 9 realms. Shred the guy. Roar." As soon as Sol finished speaking, Sif, Hogan, and the fat Volstagg immediately raised their weapons and shouted vigorously. The blood was already boiling. Sol ignored Fandral's eyes and left Asgard first. People followed closely behind, and Fandral had no choice but to keep up. On the other side, Odin, who had returned to the bedroom, took off his armor and stood on the balcony overlooking Sol, Sif, and others who were gathering the army below. One single eye is full of profoundness, and I don't know what I'm thinking about. At this time, Frigga's gentle voice came from behind. "You seem worried." Odin didn't turn his head back and replied, "Thousands of years, he is still like this. I don't know when he will be able to become a qualified king." This him, of course, refers to the eldest son Saul. Frigg walked up to Odin, leaned on her husband's chest and said softly, "You know what I'm not talking about. You are my husband, Odin. I know you too well. Your gaffe just now. I believe it's not because of Saul." Odin smiled helplessly, put one hand around his wife's shoulders, and said in a deep voice, "Just now, I felt the breath of it that I have never seen before in Midgard." "The unknown god?" Frigg frowned. Midgard belongs to one of the 9 realms and also belongs to the area ruled by Asgard, but it is very special because many ancient gods were born there, although those gods have already left and been expelled. But there are still guardians of their own. The amazing and talented Supreme Mage. The supreme mage was so powerful that he resisted countless gods and demons for a time, and even reached an agreement with Odin, but another appeared there, which should not make her husband lose his composure. That is very powerful. It's very powerful and special. She gives me the feeling of the gods of Olympus, but it's very different. She is more dangerous. Will it be an enemy? I don't know. The breath at that moment conveyed kindness, benevolence, and the iron blood of a soldier. After listening to her husband's words, Frigga understood his thoughts. She looked up at her husband's old face and sighed. I believe that Supreme Master will understand. If she really has other thoughts, that would not prevent a war. Asgard has never been afraid of war, has it? Although Odin is still powerful, he is also getting old. He is not as brave and courageous as the rising sun when he was young. He has learned to think. For Asgard and Sol, he cannot easily make a move. Gui is now in a stalemate with Dormammu, and she won't be able to get away for a while. Maybe it's time for me to meet this special unknown god. If there is going to be war, then be war. In the end, Odin's momentum remained the same as before, as if he had returned to the ambitious king who once fought everywhere. Frigga smiled. You will always be that, Odin. Age does not eat away at your will. Odin pinched Frigga's shoulder, took a few steps back, and held Gungnir in his hand. The divine light was shining, and the gorgeous armor of the king was on his body. Along with the colorful beams of light, he went straight into the sky, and Odin's figure also disappeared. In it, Frigga looked up at the disappearing colorful lights. Her tender eyes God flashed a trace of worry. Odin, the book was opened in a hurry, so let's sort out the outline. Let's start with the 5th update today, and start at the 10th update tomorrow. Thank you for the reward and the monthly pass. Chapter 6. The meeting of the two gods on the cliffs of the Sea of Love. Kyle is wearing a gray sweater with a hood. Her soft golden hair on the temples is scattered along the gap of the brim of the hat, and her blue eyes exude divine brilliance. She is feeling the power of the 7th sense. It has to be said that she is different from ordinary people with a godhead. She is not like some natural gods who are born powerful, and she is not like those ordinary saints who gradually become stronger by perceiving the starry sky step by step. As long as she reaches the corresponding strength, she can comprehend and even surpass the mystery of the 7th sense through the godhead. She has no bottleneck. In another sense, when she has the 7th or even the 8th sense, her body will surpass evolution, possess the body of in advance, and understand the origin of the universe in advance. The combat power will naturally far exceed the powerhouses of the same level. If a strong person sees her soul and spiritual world, they will find that divine brilliance. If someone with evil intentions looks directly into her eyes, the soul and spiritual world will automatically shatter. The brilliance in his eyes gradually dissipated, and the corners of Kyle's lips curved, and he opened his arms and stretched slightly. It went much smoother than expected. Then the next step is selection. The Saint Seiya is the next most important thing. Faith is more important no matter what time period it is. Even if you really become a god, this thing can be regarded as a reserve of strategic materials. What is the battle of the gods? Isn't it just fighting for faith? There is no difference between humans and gods in this regard, except that the former is fighting for territory and resources. The earth is a gathering place of natural beliefs, and it is also a strategic point for her to cultivate her own army. The premise can be used as a springboard. After that, she can gradually advance to the universe. There are many civilized races in the universe, and that is where the real harvest is. Although she has now stepped towards the path of God, her humanity is not missing. Naturally, she has unique feelings for human beings, and the same is true of natural aesthetics. It is better to be a saint warrior or a human being. Find an alien race with a strange shape to wear a holy garment, and the picture will be too inconsistent. Strength and beauty should coexist. She looked up at the sky, and she could clearly see that a powerful and evil Dark Lord was fighting a bald female mage in a dimension beyond the earth that humans could not observe. The huge war almost shattered that independent dimensional world, but the bald mage had the upper hand between the two sides. The powerful magic power suppresses the Lord of the Dark Dimension, making it impossible for him to break free. I believe that his power will gradually weaken over time, and in the end he can only return to his own world with unwilling resentment. Supreme Mage Gu-E, Dark Lord Dormammu. With two different powers, extreme darkness, and the origin of magic belonging to Emperor Weishan, Kyle has understood and analyzed the nature of the two powers almost instantly, which is already extremely terrifying. It can be said that no matter who is fighting now, whether it is the Supreme Mage Gu-E or Dormammu, She is sure that the opponent can be suppressed or even killed in an instant. Of course, the former unless you use the Eye of Agamotto. The power of time has little effect on her now, but it doesn't mean it has no effect. What an admirable guardian. Don't you mean, Mr. Odin? Whispering, she turned her head and looked at the cliff beside her. At this time, the passage of time in the whole world seemed to slow down. The invisible ripples made the world blurred. A kind of divine and mighty force spread in this world, dangerous, powerful. Vaguely, one could hear an undeniable coercion. It's just that these didn't affect Kyle. The colorful light particles gathered, and in the blink of an eye, the old man wearing the armor of the king and holding the eternal gun Gungnir appeared in front of Kyle. Smiley face. In the one-eyed eyes, there is endless majesty and will, which makes people feel a sense of surrender. He is Odin, the king of the gods in Norse mythology. It's just that the king of the gods is already late. But the Twilight King is a king after all. Even Kyle can feel a threat from him. Kyle blinked and showed a beautiful smile. Guarding is her responsibility, and she is worthy of admiration from the beginning to the end. Odin's voice was old, majestic, and thick. He stared at the girl with one eye, and there was a huge wave in his heart. His Odin power told him that this beautiful girl was very dangerous, even surpassing the guy from the group he had hammered. That kind of never-before-seen but vast and infinite divine brilliance almost dissolved the power of Odin in his body. How terrible this is. Odin clenched the eternal spear in his hand and said in a low voice, "You have the aura of those guys from Olympus, but they are completely different. Compared with you, those guys are more like a group of false gods. Are you what kind of existence?" Odin is full of question marks at the moment. He feels the authority of dark clouds and thunder from this person, just like Athena in Olympus, but it is different. In the revenge of Nyx, the goddess of the night, the entire Odin was slaughtered. Peas and Athena also died in the arms of Hercules. After that, the only remaining gods, such as Zeus, hid in the city of omniscience. He is clear about this matter. How did this woman come here? Athena's reincarnation? But this one is so powerful that people feel horrified. If Athena was so strong back then, Nyx, the goddess of the night, could still slaughter the gods of Olympus? Has long been hammered out of human shape. Kyle smiled softly. I am fundamentally different from them. They just have the names and titles of Greek gods in vain, but they don't have the corresponding divinity. Compared with the Greek gods in the Saint Seiya, the Greek gods in this universe are too much. The most powerful Odin peak is only the Heavenly Father level. At most it is a single universe, but she is the real main. So from the beginning to the end, she didn't intend to have anything to do with that person. Thanks to the goddess of the night who slaughtered the gods of Olympus. Otherwise, she would have planned to destroy those guys herself. Anyway, there are not many really kind gods in Olympus. Divinity? Odin was thoughtful. He heard the disdain in Kyle's words. He was a little confused, but then shook his head and said, "Your appearance has changed the river of fate. I can no longer see fate clearly." "This is interesting," Kyle said. "Fate is never set in stone, is it?" "Perhaps. I can feel the kindness and benevolence emanating from your divine radiance, which cannot be faked." Odin still didn't say a word, so it would be a hypocritical who is good at disguising. "What do you want to do?" "I need faith. There are Greek gods in Marvel, but they were slaughtered. Only Zeus survived." Chapter 7. God's Punishment Belief. Odin nodded, but he was somewhat similar to the group of birdmen in heaven. Kyle looked at the sky, continued to watch the battle in another dimension outside the earth, and said softly, "I have no malice towards the earth, and I have no malice towards Asgard." The voice is soft. Odin heard the meaning contained in it, and he hesitated in his heart. He maintained due vigilance against the sudden appearance of gods who broke fate. Before, he thought that it was impossible to start the battle of gods. But when he actually saw this woman, he felt that in a real fight, he couldn't tell who would win and who would lose. If you win, you will surely fall, not to mention if you lose, the cost is too high. Once the current Asgard loses him, it will definitely fall into crisis, so after thinking for a while, he nodded. "I believe you are a kind god." Finally, he hesitated and added, "If you have time, you can come to Asgard as a guest, and we will entertain you with the highest courtesy. Thank you for your kind invitation." Kyle nodded with a smile and accepted the kindness. Odin tapped his jaw lightly, Gungnir tapped the ground lightly, and with the colorful rays of light soaring into the sky, Odin was teleported away, leaving Kyle alone on the edge of the cliff. Is it confidence in your own strength, or do you believe in yourself? Kyle laughed a little. and opened the rainbow bridge to teleport away in front of his own face. Isn't this a clear card telling her the coordinates of Asgard? If she is really an evil god, she can target and attack every minute, and if Odin is dead or not, Asgard will definitely be gone. Fortunately, she is a good god. Of course, Asgard has a lot of background. She wants to establish a sanctuary, and the two parties can cooperate for a while. After all, the Asgardians are pretty good. At least they don't backstab the alliance much. Forget it. Let's talk about building the structure of the sanctuary first. Wong. The figure disappeared in place with the bright light. Athens Parthenon. The crowd was surging. In just 2 days, a large number of people flooded into Athens. Many people from other countries in the world wanted to see what the gods had left behind. There are also people who want to be chosen by the goddess Athena to become a warrior of the gods. Once selected, one will be able to transcend mortals, among other things, powerful power, long and eternal life. Who would not be greedy? However, there are too many people, and it is easy to cause casualties. So the side immediately dispatched a large number of people to maintain order, and even issued an announcement to the outside world that no one is allowed to break the rules without authorization. Once discovered, the situation will be immediately expelled, no matter who it is. There is no way, now that Greece seems to have local gods, and many people dare not provoke them openly. If the goddess Athena is offended, who knows whether divine punishment will be imposed? Among these people, there are also many spies from other countries and forces. These people have given some convenience to Greece through various diplomatic forces. The sadness of the small country is also reflected at this moment, but fortunately, the big country did not go too far. With the Greek side maintaining order, it made things more orderly. They stipulated that people can go to the temple, but if they are not selected, they have to leave and cannot block others. However, when people came to the Parthenon temple, they were shocked to find that there seemed to be an extremely mysterious and terrifying power around the Parthenon temple, and the faint golden fluorescence turned into a barrier to block the temple. When people want to go in, they will feel a kind of power like the sky is falling. Under that kind of vast power, human beings are as insignificant as ants, instinctively feel fear, and dare not take that step. Even if there are soldiers, agents, and soldiers who have tried their best to train brutally and have a will as tough as steel, they want to ignore that great power, but their souls and biological instincts still produce fear. To the west of the temple, a group of people from a special agency on the American side frowned. There is also a group of people in front of them who are manipulating advanced technology scanning. But nothing. They also wanted to control the drone to the top of the temple, but unfortunately, just as they took off, a terrifying thunderbolt fell from the sky for no reason, shooting it down and destroying it with precision. This is the reason why countries are so law-abiding. Otherwise, what's the matter with the Greek government? Athens would have been melonied by all countries long ago. Sir, I'm sorry. We scanned and concluded that everything is normal, and the golden barrier cannot be analyzed by the machine. At this time, a man from a team came over and said helplessly to the heads of several special agencies, "This is really a hell. Is it really a god?" The head of the CIA looked at the temple in front of him and said helplessly, "Extraordinary level power is in front of you. Obviously, as long as you can master it, you might be able to solve the mystery of becoming a god. However, this short distance is like a moat that cannot be approached at all. Why don't we just bomb to see if we can blow up the barrier?" One of the people in charge said suddenly. However, as soon as he spoke, the faces of the other leaders changed, and they immediately stepped away from this guy. Under the latter's eyes, "What are you doing?" The head of the FBI looked up at the sky to see if there was no lightning falling, while cursing in a low voice, "Damn guy, which idiot sent you here? If you want to die, don't implicate us. It's not like no one has done this kind of wonderful idea before." Terrorists who didn't know where they came from sneaked in with heavy weapons and directly bombed with large-scale weapons, trying to break through the barrier. However, before they did it, the sky was covered with dark clouds. Gathering together, dozens of bolts of lightning struck down directly. All the people involved were directly chopped into ashes. That scene is really as terrifying as the end of the day. There is a precedent here. If this idiot still wants to do this, isn't that courting death? Sure enough, the next second, the sky was angry. When the gods were angry, mountains and rivers were shattered, thousands of miles of red land, blue sky. Suddenly a bolt of lightning struck down on a clear day, and a thick pillar of thunder draped over the body of the person in charge who had just proposed. In the middle, it was chopped into ashes. The others around him were not implicated. Not even a speck of dust was splashed. When the people in the distance saw the lightning falling, They all looked surprised. They even took pictures with their mobile phones and started talking loudly. Another idiot appeared, and another person who tried to blaspheme suffered divine punishment. Chapter 8. Thoughts from all sides. Look at that idiot, who has a heart of blasphemy. He deserves it. Don't talk nonsense. They seem to be agencies of the U.S. government, and they all have guns on their bodies. What's the matter? Under the gods, all living beings are equal. Before the gods, we are all mortals, and it has nothing to do with status. That's true. The crowd in the distance pointed, and many of them included believers who believed in the goddess Athena. Looking at these so-called white grandpas, they were filled with anger, and even wished to rush directly to these blasphemers and teach them a lesson instead of God. Fortunately, there were soldiers from Greece who maintained order to stop them. Otherwise, maybe there will be a scene of fanatics fighting against white grandpas today. Facing the glaring crowd, some heads of intelligence agencies, such as the CIA, expressed indifference. They, the powerful people of violent institutions, never care about the anger of the people of small countries. They're sad. They thought they could control the situation in the direction of the world, but the reality slapped them hard. There are really gods in this world, and it is also a Greek god. When the Greek gods came to Athens, no matter what, they would at least give some kindness. And it was these kindnesses that were enough to change Greece's current international status. Does America have a god? Not at all. If you have to say it cheekily, then there are only gods believed in by Latin American Indian mythology. However, if there is a real in the genocide of Native Americans in the United States, it might be the first to kill the United States. This is also the main reason why the United States is so anxious now. The United States is the strongest country today, but it doesn't mean it can bear the wrath of a god. The United States desperately hopes to have its own extraordinary power, and now is an opportunity. According to the information obtained by several responsible persons, the White House held a meeting for several days in a row. In addition to sending the most advanced scientific research team to see if they can solve the mystery of becoming outside. It's been a massive search and looking for kids who are pure in heart but have a strong sense of belonging to America, and intend to send it to Athens to see if it can be given to the chosen warrior of God. At that time, there will really be a descending from the Americas, and at least there will be a god-level Athena protecting them. Although the abacus was well done, they were not sure if it would work. All parties have their own little calculations, but no matter how shrewd they are, the vision is there, and it is impossible to know that the 88 saints are actually destined long ago. Time passed slowly. 3 days passed like this. The Parthenon temple was full for almost 24 hours in 3 days, and fanatical crowds came here one after another, looking forward to becoming the warrior chosen by the gods, but they were full of expectations and finally ushered in disappointment. Just when people thought that this might just be a fraud, the first God's chosen son was born on this day. At night on this day, the temple was still crowded with crowds. The cordon around the crowd was pulling long overhead lights to illuminate the people. Among the crowd, 2 children who were about 10 years old held hands and gradually approached the crowd step by step. Temple. Bart, is it really okay for us to just run out like this? Mama Nora will be angry. With short, messy hair, the girl in old children's clothes timidly pulled her brother whispered. The dirty little face was full of tension. It was obvious that the little girl had never seen so many people. Smiley face. The boy, whose body was obviously a little bigger, patted his chest nonchalantly, then turned around and said, "Don't worry, Tina. Nolan's mother must think we are sleeping. They are praying at this time, and they won't go to see us until an hour later." Hours. And this is the goddess Athena. If we can become great warriors of God, we will be able to help Mother Nora. Bart's simple and honest face was full of hope. He wants to be a selected child. By that time, Nora's mother and other mothers will not be so tired, worrying about eating for so many companions every day. When Tina heard what Bart said, she immediately resolutely suppressed the tension in her heart and nodded her head seriously. She also wanted to help Nora's mother. She didn't want to see Nora's mother cry. During the conversation, the 2 brothers and sisters held hands, and they could see the disappointed people in the passage back to the side, as well as the uncomfortable whispers. Tina also heard some whispers, which seemed to be questioning the great goddess Athena. Tina was very angry, puffed up her face and made faces at the backs of those villains, making the middle-aged couple behind Tina laugh out loud. Omega? Tina caught a glimpse of the 2 adults with smiles on their faces, so she immediately turned her head in embarrassment, lowering her head and looking shy. What a cute little guy. Yeah, let's have one when we go back. You are so busy every day. How can you have time? It's all my fault. I will try to reduce my working hours in the future, and we will have time." Hearing the words of the two adults behind her, Tina secretly smiled. She was the cutest. Nora and other mothers said she was the cutest. Along with the surging crowd, Bart and Tina finally stood in front of the golden barrier of the temple. On both sides, hundreds of people wanted to step over the barrier, but just when this idea came up, an undeniable fear surged in their hearts inexplicably. This instinct from the soul told them all that they were approaching one step, only death. But they really wanted to step in, so desire and fear intertwined. But in the end, they couldn't resist the fear. They failed. Just when they were about to turn around and leave full of disappointment, exclamations suddenly came from their ears. Look at those two children. Ameka, those two children stepped in." Amidst these exclamations, everyone subconsciously looked in the direction they were pointing at, and saw the two 10-year-old children in front of them walking into the golden barrier without knowing when. How can it be? This was people's initial thought, but then another thought flashed across. The warrior chosen by the goddess Athena has appeared. Chapter 9. Scorpio and Taurus. The two children stepped into the temple area, and the news immediately spread around the temple. This made many people feel bad. The heads of the special agencies of various major countries immediately exercised their authority and rushed to the main entrance of the temple along the special passage among the crowds. When they came here, they saw two children holding hands in the temple, full of confusion. A few of them reacted quickly and immediately took out their mobile phones to take pictures of the two children. Issue orders to subordinates. Immediately find out the background of the two little guys. Let's see how powerful the warrior chosen by goddess Athena will be. The head of the FBI looked at Bart and Tina solemnly. Behind him, a man in a suit had slightly turbulent eyes, and a hand in his pocket moved. But Bart and Tina, who are the focus of attention, don't know what happened at this time. When the two children came to the temple, they didn't seem to feel any pressure at all. They walked through the barrier with longing, but when they came to the temple, Bart and Tina didn't know what to do. Bart, we seem to have come in. What should we do now? Tina turned her head to take a look, and was immediately startled by those eyes, and turned back quickly. It's scary, those grown-up eyes, like the eyes of the big bad wolf in the fairy tale told by Nora's mother. Bart thought he was a man, and he was very nervous now, but with his sister by his side, he immediately mustered up his courage, pretended to be strong, patted his chest and said loudly, "Let's go find goddess Athena." Just as he was pulling Tina to run into the temple, suddenly, in the center of the temple square, the scepter that symbolized victory burst into bright golden light. The dazzling golden light shot straight into the sky, pierced through the black curtain, and illuminated the sky. This sudden movement immediately surprised everyone. Is the goddess Athena about to appear? Just as people imagined, the golden pillars of light connecting the sky dissipated and turned into strands of holy golden feathers floating down. I don't know when, in midair, she was wearing a white gauze dress swinging, wearing a crown of flowers and laurels, holding the right to victory. The beautiful goddess with a staff is floating in the air. Her golden hair fluttered in the wind. Holy and noble, the divine radiance of the goddess sprinkled the earth, making people feel ashamed and afraid to look directly at them. Those who had committed mistakes and had dark personalities could not help but feel remorse. They lowered their heads, as if looking at one glance at the goddess is blasphemy. In the temple, the two children, Bart and Tina, were selected, with their heads up, their eyes full of admiration and little stars. "Goddess," Tina murmured, her eyes sparkling. "The goddess is so beautiful." Goddess Athena, the man Bart also blushed at this time, stuttering and feeling a little at a loss. The goddess slowly descended from the sky accompanied by golden feathers all over the sky, looked at the two children who had just reached her waist, and said softly, "Bart, Tina, your kindness and bravery have touched the stars. Tell me now, you are ready to protect this beautiful world?" The ethereal voice is full of tenderness. "I'm ready, goddess Athena. I want to protect Mother Nora, Mother Neville, and all the companions in the family." Facing the beautiful and gentle eyes of the goddess, Bart seemed to be injected with courage. He slapped his chest and said loudly. Although Tina was a bit shy, she mustered up her courage, nodded her head and said in a low voice, "I'm ready too, Lady Goddess. Love and protection are the most beautiful qualities of human beings. You will use this to accompany the stars and protect love and the world with the power of stars." In the name of Athena, the voice gradually became louder, and the vast will of the gods was revived. Athena held up the scepter of victory, and in the name of God, bestowed the power of the stars. I saw that above the sky was covered with stars, and the bright stars formed two mysterious and great patterns. One is a Scorpio and the other is a Taurus. The goddess looks up at the stars with bright eyes. The bright stars shone in all directions. The mortals in Athens raised their heads and looked at the two patterns. In a daze, they seemed to see the young people in noble and gorgeous golden battle suits fighting against the evil spirits on the battlefield of the ancient gods. Battle of the gods. Destroying the world with one punch and one kick. Facing the mighty gods, in order to protect love and justice, they are not afraid even if they are covered in blood. With shocking shouts, full of anger, the bright small universe bursts out, hitting that devastating punch spoke of the indifference and ruthlessness of the gods. That kind of solemnity, that kind of desolation, that kind of will to go forward without fear of life and death, makes people's blood spurt and blood boil. I can't wait to be in it, become those fighters, and die together. Such a scene is also deeply engraved in the memory of the two children Bart and Tina. In young minds, boom, the scepter tapped lightly on the ground, and in an instant, like ripples on the surface of the water, the golden ripples spread round and round. In the sky, the pattern formed by the two stars became brighter and brighter. Finally, the dazzling starlight turned into two waves. Beams of light fell from the sky. In an instant, Bart and Tina were enveloped. In the bright golden starlight, the two children floated out of thin air, and the two children were surprised and excited. At this time, an ancient, mysterious, and magnificent city silhouette suddenly emerged, full of ancient Greek style, and the buildings were like corners of history, with endless vicissitudes and antiquity. There are a total of 12 bridges between the huge and gorgeous buildings, surrounded by countless stone pillar statues like proud giants. The most eye-catching thing is the largest temple in the center of the city. It is hundreds of meters high and stands floating. On the high platform on the top floor, it seems to be the throne of a goddess, overlooking all living beings. The silhouette of the city is like a dream, like a bubble, like a phantom, separated from reality, but seems to be related to reality. The two children were drawn by the brilliance of the golden stars and came to the city. Chapter 10. Spy on God, Death. Two of the buildings in the city, two bright golden beams of light rushed into the sky in an instant, connecting with the two star patterns. A sacred, high-level, and vast aura suddenly swept from it. Everyone stared intently at the two golden beams of light. Vaguely, everyone seemed to see something in the golden beam of light. Sure enough, when the golden beam of light dissipated slowly, two animals made of gold appeared. Just like the patterns of stars, a majestic and mighty golden bull with two giant horns standing in its head, a crawling scorpion, and two sharp horns, pincers, and a tail with a venomous spine at the end. Although the shapes are two animals, there is an incomparable dignity. While people were still dazzled by the two golden animals, whoosh, hearing the sound of piercing through the sky, two animals suddenly pierced through the sky, pulling their long golden tail flames and sinking into the bodies of Bart and Tina. At the same time, the shining patterns on the sky dome scattered starlight, and the starlight continued to sink into the thin bodies of the two children. Plop, plop. The eyes of the two children instantly became hollow. The sound of two hearts beating rhythmically shook the sky like thunder. People have begun to realize that these two children are undergoing an astonishing transformation, and it is also this transformation that will allow the two children to leave their mortal bodies and become warriors of the gods. On the battlefield of the ancient gods, a warrior who dared to shake his fist at the gods. Quickly, take pictures carefully. It is best to take pictures of the evolution process of the two children. We may be able to analyze them when we go back. The heads of CIA and FBI hurriedly whispered to their subordinates. However, no movement was heard. Immediately annoyed and looked back, he was shocked to find that several of his subordinates wanted to look at the goddess Athena in the distant temple with dazed faces. What's so good about a goddess? It's really beautiful. Athena's beauty is soul-stirring. But this kind of beauty makes people unable to look directly and even have dirty thoughts. Damn it, you idiots. The head of the CIA yelled angrily in a low voice and immediately woke up the group of agents under him. The agents shook off the lingering beautiful figure in their minds and quickly took out a high-precision camera and pointed it at the sky. Bart and Tina's minds were completely blank at this time, and they only felt as if they had come to another world. Two big brothers wearing very beautiful golden armor are teaching themselves a mysterious and ancient fighting secret. Moreover, The two of them seem to have passed a long, long time in this world. Here, feel the stars, feel the vast universe, and awaken a kind of power called the small universe. Finally, the two of them succeeded on a certain day. The two felt their own stars and awakened the small universe. At the moment when the small universe awakened, the blank eyes of Bart and Tina became alive. The two seemed to have matured a lot at once, and their temperament had also undergone a huge change. Boom! Two terrifying auras erupted in an instant, rushing towards all directions like vast and monstrous waves. Affected by this force, even the entire city of Athens shook violently. Most importantly, being suppressed by this momentum, everyone felt that the sky was about to collapse. Disaster and doomsday, despair and fear were born. It was also at this time that people realized at the same time that these two children had completed their transformation towards the gods. After subconsciously bursting into arrogance, Batty and Tina also realized that something was wrong and quickly withdrew their aura, and everything returned to calm. The two raised their hands in disbelief. Do you already have such a powerful force? Even, I can feel that if I punch with all my strength, the entire Acropolis of Athens will be directly smashed, and millions of people will fall under this punch. If the two of them hadn't suddenly experienced 10 years in that world, perhaps their minds would have changed. Bart, Tina. At this time, the gentle voice of the goddess Athena came from next to their ears, waking them up. Bart and Tina glanced at each other, and their figures blurred instantly. The figures of the two. Such a speed is so exaggerated that it is shocking. At least the heads of organizations in various countries are paying more and more attention to the fighters selected by the goddess Athena. In front of the goddess Athena, Bart and Tina respectfully knelt on one knee and said, "Your Majesty." Athena, or Kyle, looked at the little warriors she had handpicked and shaped in front of her, and she said softly, "You have initially awakened to have a sixth sense small universe, but you are not strong enough to protect this world. You still need to become stronger." "Yes, Your Majesty." Bart and Tina have serious faces. After the transformation, they have mature minds. Not only have their beliefs in the goddess not changed, but they have even become more serious. Smiley face. Now, if the goddess wants Bart and Tina to die, both of them will not hesitate. The construction of the sanctuary is continuing. You can practice in the sanctuary. I have given you the corresponding qualifications. Your progress will be very fast. Bart and Tina naturally followed the words of goddess Athena, but Tina hesitated for a moment and whispered, "Your Majesty, Kyle saw the thoughts of the two and said gently, "You can come back anytime. This is your home." For the family members in the adoption home, Bart and Tina couldn't let go. The biggest reason for the two of them was to be selected so that they could help the adoption home that was already in financial trouble. Of course, she won't be a bad person. And for her, orphanages and adoption homes all over the world are the basis for her to train saints. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Bart and Tina immediately showed joyful smiles. Kyle nodded. She turned her head and glanced into the distance. Her expression became a little indifferent. "Who allows you to spy on the gods?" Boom! The victory scepter tapped lightly on the ground. In the next second, just away from Athens on an uninhabited island dozens of kilometers away, a monstrous pillar of thunder suddenly fell from the sky. These chapters have been revised a lot, mainly because I reviewed the manuscript before and found that Athena was not tall enough, so I deleted and revised a lot. Sorry for the lack of 10 updates. Chapter 11. The spying of the Devil King at the same time. On the edge of the cliff on the isolated island, the expression of the seemingly gentle old man in a suit changed drastically. Can this be found? When the crisis came, he did not hesitate to use his abilities with all his strength, and instantly a demon figure with red skin and a red cloak flashed past. He held a civilization stick and pointed it at the void in front of him. Wong. A huge shield composed of pure black-purple energy emerged, and in the next second, terrifying thunder came raging, bombarding the magic shield. However, the magic shield was destroyed like a bubble, shattered in an instant, and swallowed by the old man's disbelieving eyes. Rumble. The earth-shattering thunder destroyed the uninhabited island in an instant, and the terrifying shock wave raged across the wilderness. Roll up the boundless monstrous waves. The huge aftermath even spread to the city of Athens. The city of Athens was constantly shaking, causing many people to scream in horror. Great gift shed. Seeing the doomsday-like scene in the distance, the heads of special agencies in various countries couldn't help murmuring in horror. Everyone turned their heads to look at Athena in a daze. At this time, Everyone realized that the originally seemingly benevolent and gentle goddess also had the title of goddess of war. People, once violated, the ruthless divine punishment will come. God cannot be guessed and cannot be profaned. The proud and arrogant CIA and FBI and some other responsible persons immediately completely extinguished some remaining small thoughts, and even planned to go back and directly withdraw from the operations related to Athena. This benefit is not seen at all, and if one is not careful, one should have some thoughts that should not be raised, or one's body will be wiped out. They know their characters all too well. Greed and desire are in ants' genes, which cannot be controlled. As for the believers of Athena, they didn't care what the white grandpas thought. When they saw the goddess they believed in showing the power to destroy the world, their emotions immediately rose to the extreme, and their expressions were extremely excited. Athena, Athena. Someone actually tried to spy on the great goddess. They should be damned. Hey, looking at the situation over there. I'm sure I'm dead. Even the ashes must have been thrown away. This is the attitude that the gods should have, and it is also in line with the believer's consistent impression of the goddess Athena, who is kind and kind to the world, and treats the blasphemer, and the enemy uses the most thunderous means. In the temple, Bart and Tina also sensed the strong evil power flashing past the distant island at this time, and immediately stood up. Under the crown, Kal shook his head slightly, his noble blue eyes glowing. The demon from hell, it seems that he should sense my power, come and see the situation. However, that demon should have noticed you. Bart and Tina, who can be selected, have absolutely top-notch aptitude, and their souls are very pure, especially after breaking through to the sixth sense. Their soul and spiritual power have been transformed. A demon who is good at playing with souls, if he can obtain the souls of two people, he can greatly improve himself. This kind of temptation is irresistible for the demon. Your Majesty. Bart has a simple and straightforward temper, and he was already angry when he heard Athena say that there are demons thinking about him and Tina. I can't wait to find the other party and blow that guy up with my giant horn. Tina's eyes were wide open, and her small face was full of murderous intent. After undergoing transformation and becoming mature, her personality also changed a little. One word is good, and she has a sharp weapon to kill herself. Kyle vetoed the idea of the two. The other party is very good at hiding. You can't find him. However, he should not give up. You need to be careful. Understood, Your Majesty. If a powerhouse at the level of the Heavenly Father wants to hide, saints like Bart and Tina, who have just become sixth sense, will never be able to find them. But this matter can also be regarded as an experience for two little guys. Facing the threat of the Demon King directly will make the little ones grow faster, but before that, she needs to do one more thing. After explaining, Kal chose to leave. As the shining starlight spread like ripples, her figure also disappeared in the Parthenon. And Bart and Tina looked at each other, glanced at the crowd outside, and Tina said, Bart, let's go back first. Well, Mama Nora is in a hurry when she finds out we're leaving. Bart's powerful mental power covered the whole of Athens. Seeing the situation in the orphanage, his face suddenly became a little complicated, a little scared. Even though he is now the guard of the goddess Athena, the golden saint, he is still afraid of the majesty of Nora's mother. Tina secretly smiled, and then said expectantly, Mother Nora will be very happy knowing that we have become saints. While talking, the two of them didn't delay any longer. They stepped on the ground and instantly turned into two figures and shot straight into the sky. Accompanied by the sound of sound explosions, they completely disappeared into the night under the eyes of everyone. Is that the sound barrier? It has already flown just after being selected, and its speed has reached the speed of sound? A look of horror flashed in the eyes of the heads of various countries and some caring people. New York, the top floor of a building with a trident shape. Two 10-year-old children can fly at the speed of sound and have the physical strength to withstand this level of pressure. Drop. In the modern office, a bald, one-eyed black man in a black trench coat pressed the pause button, and the holographic image in front of him froze as Bart and Tina disappeared into the night. One eye is full of dignity. This is also a huge shock to him, the director of the U.S. Department of Unnatural Events. Even if you personally experienced the big event in 1995, at any rate, that old friend gained great power because of an accidental contact with a cosmic treasure, plus an extraterrestrial experiment. But what happened to these two 10-year-old children? Likewise, how powerful is the goddess Athena who can empower two young children? The 12 Lord Gods. This name is too important. In Greek mythology, the 12 Lord Gods are the bosses who can easily destroy the universe. Through observation, Athena seems to have been severely injured because of the battlefield of the gods and the battle with the gods, but no one knows how strong it is. Chapter 12. Mephisto's calculation, but breaking the earth shouldn't be a big deal, right? Such a big boss suddenly came to the earth. He really has a headache. Originally, there were two powerful mutants at the level of natural disasters in the United States, Magneto and Professor X, and now there is a mythical god. It is also suspected to be of the main level. Compared to him, he never believed that the goddess Athena was so benevolent and devoted all her energy to cultivating warriors for the earth and protecting the world. Judging from malicious speculation, that goddess is Athena. Maybe it is the time for both sides to be injured in the battle of the gods, and it is time to start to accumulate and cultivate. Be prepared. In the same way, is it possible that the earth will become the battlefield of the battle of the gods? Can the earth support this level of war? Obviously impossible. Director, are you worried? The female agent standing in front of her saw that the chief was in a bad mood and said bluntly, "Sil, what do you think of the Athena who appeared?" asked the chief. Agent Hill did not hesitate and said, "Whether Athena is as merciful as she said is unknown, but what we know is that she did not cause any harm to the earth, and she possesses incredible power. Last night, she can carry out long-range strikes from a distance of 65 kilometers from the city of Athens. An island covering an area of 6,000 square meters was blown into ashes, and the preliminary estimate of the lightning bolt was close to 200 million volts." After speaking, he shrugged. The director understood what Hill meant, walked to the desk, took a sip of the half-cold coffee cup and said, "So if she wants, she can incinerate any known substance on the earth, and I can't see her shadow. That's why I'm bothered by Hill. The people in the White House are crazy now. They covet and fear the power of the gods. Those idiots are likely to anger a god. I don't want 300 million people in the United States to be buried with them for their stupid decisions. I don't want to bet on whether an angry is willing to use her power." Kindness. Hillary understood, but he still said helplessly, "Sir, although I don't want to say it, neither the goddess Athena nor the higher-ups are in our control." "That's right, Hill." The director put down the coffee cup. "We can't do many things within the system, so we need a special team that is not subject to jurisdiction and can stop people in time when they do stupid things. So I hope you can give me good news, so that I can drink a cup of hot milk tonight and fall asleep peacefully." "Great news, sir." Hill handed over the documents in his hand and saw that the director had already started to read them and said at the same time, "We're looking for 7 targets, 3 people with special energy, 2 mutants, 1 genetically modified enhanced person, and the other has a bad temper." The chief flipped through the pages without changing his expression and replied casually, "We need a grumpy guy. Only such a guy can wake up those idiots." "Director, I don't think the military will agree. They've been scrambling over this guy. Some people are getting impatient, and I'm going to push this plan up. So, what's the name of this team?" "The Avengers." Snap. The director closed the document, and his expression became confident. "The dimension is a purgatory full of flames, chaos, and death, where the living cannot enter. Only the undead and demons can survive. For tens of millions of years, there have been fighting, conspiracy, and calculation here all the time. There are countless powerful demons and evil gods in hell, but in name, the one who can really be called the master is the Lord Mephisto, also known as the King of Demons. At the end of hell stands the castle of the Demon King, the Demon King Mephisto, with dark red skin, a red cloak, and a demon tail flicking at the end, standing on the balcony of the castle meditating. Before that, his soul incarnation walking in the world suddenly sensed a mighty divine brilliance. That's when a truly powerful descended on earth. Mephisto is very strange. There is that woman of the Ancient One on the earth. Where can I say that all the gods who came to the earth were either killed by the woman of the Ancient One or expelled? So much so that the earth is now almost becoming a forbidden zone for the universe and all dimensions. Gods would not dare to step into any powerful evil gods, but it turned out that some gods dared to step into the world. Smiley face. So curious, he went to the earth where the spirit of the gods is the most intense, wanting to see the situation. As a result, just after taking a look, the powerful female directly chopped the soul clone into ashes. Fortunately, there was still a ray of soul that escaped back to hell, so he knew the situation. This made Mephisto terrified. The female was so powerful that he, like the old Odin, had the authority over thunder and lightning. Mephisto knew very well that he must not be the opponent of the female god. Even now recalling that peerless figure, the soul can't help but tremble. Instinct told him that he must not provoke this goddess. Really will die. But Mephisto was a little reconciled. He valued the soul and specialness of those two children. If he could obtain those two pure and powerful souls, his strength would be improved again. This is very important to Mephisto. After all, if he wants to improve his current strength, it is calculated on the basis of millions of years. Two souls can shorten this process. Why would he want to give up? Greed and cunning are the nature of demons. Mephisto decided to take a risk. He believed that the woman Gu-E would not just let on Earth like this. If the two sides fight, his chance will come. The seeds of conspiracies took root in Mephisto's mind, and he was familiar with the tricks and schemes secretly. However, just when Mephisto was making plans, the sky suddenly opened a huge crack, and the crack, stretching for tens of millions of miles, wantonly spread a vast and powerful sacred aura. Under the influence of this sacred aura, the whole began to vibrate violently. Chapter 13. Into hell. Mephisto looked up sharply. His soul began to tremble unconsciously, and he actually felt death at this moment. That's right, the powerful Lord at this very moment, actually breeds fear, and fear because of death. This is simply ridiculous, but it really happened. Mephisto looked up at the sky. At this time, the sky above was originally crimson, blood-stained, as if a blood-colored river poured down. But now, in such a blood-colored river, a hole was torn open by an inexplicable force. In that crack that stretches for tens of millions of kilometers, densely packed stars glowing with light can be clearly seen, as if in this crack there is a vast new universe. Could it be? Seeing the crack, Mephisto suddenly had an incredible idea in his heart. He stared intently at the crack. Sure enough, in the next second, a bright star fell down from the crack, spreading a boundless aura of light. Hundreds of millions of undead and demons in the entire felt the rich and sacred light, and they all wailed. They found that under the light, their bodies and souls were melting. Even if they hide in a dark corner, they cannot escape. Can only helplessly with despair, completely turned into a particle and merged with hell. Hundreds of millions of kilometers of land. The boundless hellfire was wiped out, and all creatures on the red ground were washed by light. The great descends and trembles. In the dimension of hell, there are many powerful beings and evil gods. All of them immediately sensed that a great existence had come to hell. Each of them felt the danger, so they curled up in their own territory without hesitation. Did not seek death. Anyway, there is Mephisto, the titular lord, on his back. At this time, Mephisto was staring at the beautiful figure slowly emerging from the stars hanging above the sky under the crack. He couldn't believe his eyes. That woman tore open the dimensional boundary so directly and violently and broke into the dimension. Wong. As if noticing Mephisto's gaze, the beautiful figure disappeared instantly in the sky on the far side of hell, and in the blink of an eye, when it appeared here, it had already arrived in front of Mephisto's castle. Still wearing the thin white gauze wrapped around her graceful body, with bare white feet, golden hair with a wreath of flowers and laurel, and holding a victory scepter. With strands of majesty, the white gauze and golden hair danced and floated in the sky. That peerless beauty, even if the race is different, Mephisto can still feel the beauty that cannot be described in words. It's just that Mephisto didn't have time to appreciate this kind of beauty at all. Facing those extremely indifferent gazes, he raised his head and couldn't help saying, "Are you crazy? It's because of me that I broke into like this. Take a look at you." This is completely beyond Mephisto's imagination. This goddess looks so beautiful, but her temper is as violent as that woman of Gu-E. It seems that this woman cannot be provoked casually in the future. Kyle looked down at the demon king Mephisto on the roof of the castle below. His blue eyes were piercingly cold, and his red lips were slightly parted. "Mephisto, spy on me wantonly, trying to get the soul of my chosen child. You must punish wherever you hide." The ethereal voice, belonging to the mighty will of the Lord God, shook the entire hell. Every single word seemed to shatter hell. The earth, stretching for hundreds of millions of kilometers, vibrated crazily. One after another, ferocious and terrifying long cracks spread wantonly like spider webs. Countless wandering undead and demons fled in fear. They are to stay away from this zone of doom. Mephisto, who was facing Kyle, only felt that his body and soul were under tremendous pressure at this moment, and this pressure almost made him unable to bear it. But the devil's cunning made Mephisto take a chance, trying to use words to kill this crisis. His figure floated slowly, parallel to Kyle, showing basic toughness, but he said, I'm just curious about your appearance, beautiful and powerful goddess. I am amazed by your strength, and at the same time I am surprised because of my offended and received corresponding punishment. I lost part of my soul. During the speech, he noticed that Kyle was still indifferent, so he changed the topic. Obviously, these cannot extinguish your anger, and I am willing to pay the due price to save everything. He stretched out his hand, and in front of him, crystallizations of souls radiating bright light emerged. Kyle could even feel the struggle and pain of those disturbed souls in the crystal. Her eyes grew colder. Mephisto noticed this and quickly said, "These souls were obtained through trading when I was walking in the world. If you make a deal with the devil, you will be imprisoned and tortured forever. Your inside is as ugly as your outside, devil. You tried to cover up the ugly thoughts in your heart, but you couldn't hide it from me." Boom. Kyle was not talking nonsense. His blue eyes were filled with divine brilliance, and a majestic and vast aura swept across. He held up the golden scepter of victory, and the small universe from the seventh sense erupted fiercely and swung it hard. In an instant, the sky was full of thunder. The thunder and lightning shot by Kyle, who has the power of thunder and lightning, is enough to kill a strong man at the level of the Heavenly Father. Even if Kyle feels the limitation from the dimension and suppresses some of her small universes, it is enough. The terrible thunder slanted like a torrential rain. Mephisto felt that every thunder and lightning had the power to kill him. He didn't hide it. He knew that the war had already started. With a roar, hellfire erupted from his body. In an instant, thousands of thunderbolts collided with the boundless sea of hellfire. Boom, boom, boom. There were muffled roars, lightning and fire intertwined, and the raging majestic power caused the entire to vibrate violently, and the space of purgatory began to distort and blur. Mephisto was extremely decisive. The roar of the sonic boom shattered. His figure roared against the electric fire above and rushed towards Kyle. The evil face showed a ferocious face. His hands were opened wide, and the thick smoke of lava filled the surrounding space. Chapter 14. War. Mephisto filled with death, poison, and corrosive smoke. The space is covered. Cracks were cracked in the ground, and from the cracks, terrible lava was brewing, waiting to erupt at any time. Kyle, who was in the center of the smog, burst into golden divine light, dispelling the smog that was trying to corrode him. At the same time, she felt the tiny invisible fluctuations coming from behind her, and she twisted her figure, holding the scepter and swinging it back forcefully. Boom! The air wave exploded, and the golden scepter of victory hit the chest of Mephisto, who was trying to attack Kyle. In the latter's surprise, Mephisto hit the ground like a falling meteorite. Boom! The ground shook violently again. The sky was full of dust and debris, and a deep pit with a diameter of tens of thousands of kilometers emerged. Mephisto was lying in the center of the deep pit, with a pit mark on his chest. Damn it! She's not that kind of weak god. Mephisto spat out blood. Weakness is compared to gods who focus on physical strength. Some gods of the Heavenly Father level focus on soul, magic, and cosmic secret energy. Some focus on the physical body, and there are also comprehensive types, such as Odin. Mephisto thought that Kyle should focus on the type of cosmic secret energy. That's why he made a surprise attack close to him, but he miscalculated. Kyle's appearance was too deceptive. The blow just now almost pierced his demon body, and his strength was obviously too strong. Is this really a woman? How does it feel stronger than the Eternals? Mephisto muttered silently. But at this time, it was too late to complain too much. At this time, above the sky, Kyle held up the golden victory scepter, and the shining stars with boundless energy fell down like a meteor shower, pulling a long tail flame, mixed with the power of mighty stars. Mephisto's evil face suddenly became ugly. Seeing that the brilliant meteor shower had already fallen, he prepared to flee directly without any hesitation. But a cold female voice came from beside my ears. "Wanna run?" Clatter within the earth. Chains of order composed of stars pierced the ground, covering the sky and the sun. Before Mephisto was about to use black magic to escape, he tightly wrapped and locked his body. The energy contained in the chains directly sealed by Mephisto. There is no chance for him to use black magic. No. Mephisto really panicked now. He could only helplessly watch the gorgeous and terrifying meteor shower fall in despair. Boom, boom, boom. A huge explosion resounded through the entire hell, and the boundless energy shock wave raged wildly. Everything in the surrounding hundreds of millions of kilometers of land was annihilated by the powerful energy. The ground shook and the mountains shook, and the surrounding space has been distorted and collapsed to the extreme. There are even traces of distorted cracks in the air. The whole scene is as terrifying as the end of the day. Floating in the sky, Kyle indifferently looked down at the raging torrent on the ground. The white gauze skirt and hair fluttered with the wind, which was beautiful but full of danger. In other directions far away from hell, many powerful evil gods and demons sensed the mighty and violent energy, and the shock in their hearts was beyond words. Another powerful god? Terrible god. Disgusting breath. The great Lord Mephisto is going to be unlucky. Will he die? If Mephisto is dead, can I obtain the authority that belongs to the Lord of Hell? Hell has never been a place of kindness. There are only conspiracy and mutual calculations here. The cowardly and ignorant will be swallowed by conspiracy. The battle in is dark and terrible. Profit is the gist of hell. Smiley face. At this moment, countless evil gods and demons hoped that Mephisto would die at the hands of that unknown god, instead of thinking about death. It's just a pity that they didn't know that Kyle never thought of killing Mephisto. For Kyle, Mephisto and Even are all prepared for her future guards. This will be the best place to practice. The end of Mephisto and even the evil gods will only die in the hands of the saints. Rumble. The raging torrent of impact lasted for a long, long time before it calmed down. When the billowing smoke and dust dissipated, what remained was a bottomless pit with a diameter of tens of millions of kilometers. In the pit, one could vaguely see hot molten lava spewing out green smoke. The figure of Mephisto has disappeared, but he didn't die, but escaped. Under the shining meteor shower, Mephisto also thought he was dead, but he didn't expect that at the last moment when the stars fell, he found that the chains around his body were loose. Gave him a chance. So he escaped. But he was still very seriously traumatized. He had a great fear of the goddess in his heart, and this kind of fear caused Mephisto to cast black magic and escape from that place at the fastest speed in his life. He also does not want to see the female god. But his fear came after all. He originally thought that he could escape the other party's perception by hiding. So he hid in the ruins of a broken and devastated city hundreds of millions of kilometers away. But when Kyle appeared in front of him again, Mephisto fell into despair. The barefoot woman in light white gauze, holding a golden scepter, has been thoroughly engraved into his soul, becoming a fear that can never be erased. Mephisto gave up struggling and just stood in front of Kyle, waiting for death to come. However, Kyle broke through his disguise, with a hint of disdain in his ethereal voice. Give up that stupid idea. I never believe that a demon will give up struggling. Every word and every movement of yours is covering up your hypocritical appearance, making people sick. Mephisto didn't look embarrassed at all when he was spotted. Instead, his evil and ferocious face showed a humble look. In hell, only hypocrisy and disguise can survive. I can live up to now because of this. Of course, for you it's not worth mentioning. I believe you don't want to kill me, so please tell me what you want me to do. Naturally, Mephisto's wisdom goes without saying. The moment he loosened the chain, he understood that this powerful female did not want to kill himself. Chapter 15. The Power of Odin Asgard. Inside the gorgeous Asgard, Odin stood on the balcony in his normal clothes, looking up at the star-studded sky. His one eye seemed to see the great battle and through the dimension. Feeling the powerful power of that Kyle, his face was as usual. From behind, Frigga came over and said softly, "It's such an amazing god. Even I can feel her strength. She is indeed remarkable. Because of her, fate is no longer clear. You seem to be very calm, Odin." Frigg stretched out her hand to brush Odin's brows. The you before were majestic but full of sorrow. Did she make you change like this? I can feel it, Frigga. Odin held his wife's hand, lowered his head and pressed his forehead tightly against his wife's forehead. Feeling this warm moment, her appearance is very important to Asgard. It's a good thing to say. The future of Asgard has changed. A change that makes me gratified but confused. Trust me, letting nature take its course is the best way. Frigga comforted. Odin smiled. Perhaps you are right. She may become an indispensable friend in Asgard in the future. You want to make an alliance with her? I don't know her origin, but I know that she has ambitions beyond my imagination. What she did on Earth, and is to form her own kingdom of God. This is our best chance. Frigga was a little puzzled. You don't seem to be afraid of her ambition? Just like you back then, you fought everywhere and even provoked the celestial group. Ambition is the bedrock of motivation, and a powerful with ambition is terrifying. Hearing the celestial group, Odin laughed dumbfounded. as if recalling the brilliant but embarrassing experience back then. Her ambition is different from mine. At the beginning, I wanted to use the will of the Odinson family to conquer all worlds and let the glory of Asgard spread throughout the universe. But she is different. She wants to be more pure. She wants to beyond the multiverse. Beyond the multiverse? Frigga was shocked. I believe she will become a new great existence. Frigga nodded silently, then realized something. Will the gods of the omniscient city notice her? Odin shook his head indifferently. The group of gods who hide and enjoy themselves, how could they be the opponents of an ambitious and powerful god? Those group of self-deceiving, stupid and arrogant guys. Even without her, someone in the future heaven also destroys itself. The old guy Zeus was quite ambitious at the beginning, but after years of erosion, he gradually became obsessed with desire and completely sank. Even Zeus's strength is not inferior to himself at his peak, and whether Zeus will conflict with Athena is still uncertain. After all, Zeus, an LSP, saw the goddess who surprised him, and he might have to kneel and lick first. It's not without precedent. I don't have much time. I just hope Sol can mature as much as possible, otherwise he won't be recognized by Odin's power, and he will always become a qualified king. And Loki said that his two sons, Odin, headache, thousands of years of training. Sol's character has not changed at all. Recklessness, pride, arrogance, and other shortcomings have all been highlighted in the young Sol. And Loki seems to be very intelligent and approachable, but in fact his heart is full of calculations and ruthlessness. For the things he loves, he even stabbed his brother a few times, which is much more difficult to deal with than Sol. If he falls in the future, he will not be surprised if the two brothers break up. Frigga was not so worried and said with tenderness on her face, "They are all good children. Sol and your personality are very similar at the beginning. You also became mature after becoming a king. Loki and I trust him. He's not emotionless people. On the contrary, his feelings are more delicate and sensitive. We just need to slowly guide them to become better and more mature." Odin also understood, but shook his head helplessly. He could only sigh softly. The old father was always full of worries about the growth of his children, but Odin remembered Kyle. Kyle was forming his own army. The two selected children were endowed with great power. For the Asgardian Protoss, no. Odin silently began to plan. In Athens, an orphanage named Tonali was built in the poorest street. The orphanage used to be a school, but it was bought and transformed into an orphanage. The purpose is to accept and adopt those poor and helpless children in Athens. And now in the orphanage, Nora, who was the oldest, was in the dilapidated hall, looking at Bart and Tina, who were honest and well-behaved on the chairs in front of them. Nora is a 50-year-old woman. Her temper is very gentle, so she is the favorite of the children. But now Nora was furious. She had no idea that Bart and Tina, who were usually the most well-behaved, would sneak out of the orphanage while they were praying. After she found out, she searched like crazy with several others. Even the goddess Athena did not pay attention when she came again. As a result, when they were considering whether to call the police, these two little villains flew from the sky into the yard, almost scaring them to death, thinking they were possessed by some demon. When Nora saw the two children coming back, she breathed a sigh of relief. But at the same time she was furious, and pressured the two little villains to bring the living room to teach them a lesson. A little something to do at night. Update in the morning. Chapter 16. God's deterrence, but more of a concern for Bart and Tina. Under the depressive gazes of Nora and several others, Bart and Tina still hurriedly shared their experiences. Just as Bart and Tina expected. Hearing that Bart and Tina sneaked out to participate in the selection, they actually succeeded. Very lucky to be selected by the great goddess Athena and become the warrior of the god. Nora and the others couldn't accept this sudden surprise. It never occurred to them that the two children they raised would become the chosen, which explains Bart and Tina flying down from the sky. After a few breaths, I finally accepted this fact. Nora's slightly round face was flushed, and she walked up to Batty and Tina excitedly, stretched out her hands to embrace the two well-behaved children, and cried in surprise. "I'm so proud of you guys, you're the best. The great goddess Athena takes pity on us. I must pray for Athena. Thank Athena for her kindness." Several other people walked over and hugged Bart and Tina together. They are a group of kind-hearted people who fight for orphans to have a shelter. Some of them have persisted for several years, 10 years, or even 20 years. They have given their all for this, and this is their painstaking efforts. Also regard those poor children as their own children. Since the establishment of this orphanage, hundreds of children have been taken in, and more children have grown up, worked, married wives, and started families. But to maintain such an orphanage, they have spent all their savings. For the sake of their children, they even go back to work part-time, or even 2 jobs, to earn money to buy supplies. There are also grown-up children who will send food and money from time to time, but they still cannot make ends meet. They had thought of a lot of ways before, and Nora was still thinking about whether she was doing a job. Although she was tired, she didn't want her children to go hungry. But now that Bart and Tina have been chosen by Athena, they are happy because they know that these 2 lovely children have a bright future. As for the idea of using Bart and Tina to get something for the orphans, it never occurred to them. Living in poverty, but has a kindness that many people don't have. Bart and Tina wiped away the tears from the corners of the mother's eyes. Although Bart has matured, he still acted like a child in front of the mothers. As usual, he puffed up his chest and said loudly, "Mother Nora, Tina and I are now saints. We will protect you in Athens." Tina nodded her head like a chicken pecking rice. Nora and the others looked at each other, gently stroked the heads of the 2 children, and said softly, "We believe that you can do it, because you are our favorite children." Bart and Tina suddenly giggled. The compliments from their mothers made them both very happy. During this conversation, Bart suddenly frowned, turned his head and looked outside the courtyard door through the living room door, and Tina did the same. "What's wrong with Bart?" The delicate Nora saw the abnormality between Bart and Tina. "Mother Nora, someone is here." Bart stood up and walked towards the door with Tina. Nora and the others exchanged glances and quickly followed. Sure enough, when I came to the compound, I opened the gate with metal railings, and there were more than a dozen cars driving on the road in the distance outside the gate. Although they are all SUVs, they are all expensive and high-end imported cars. The convoy stopped in front of the orphanage, the door opened, and many people in suits and with extraordinary temperament got out of the car. The faces are clearly from different countries. A group of white men in suits came over and saw Batty and Tina standing at the door. Seeing this situation, Nora and the others immediately subconsciously fell in front of Batty and Tina. "Who are you?" Nora was the first to speak. Although she was wearing old clothes at this time, she was as fierce and vigilant as a lioness with its hair blown. So did several others. The leader was the heads of the FBI and CIA agencies in the United States. Smiley face. Seeing Nora's vigilant look, the head of the CIA quickly said, "I'm sorry to disturb you late at night, Ms. Nora. I am the Deputy Director of the U.S. Federal Agency. James, I am here to visit this time, hoping to have a talk with you." His attitude was surprisingly modest. There is no gesture of arrogance or contempt for the people of small countries by white gentlemen. The same is true for the heads of other countries. To be the person in charge of this kind of thing, no one would be an idiot, especially the scene where the goddess Athena easily destroyed an island tens of kilometers away was still vivid. And just now behind Nora and the others, 2 small-looking little guys flew into the air, and the 2 loud noises were not fake. It can be said that just relying on Bart and Tina alone can kill all of them here. Who would dare to provoke such a person? As the saying goes, a mother is more expensive than a child. This is also the last word. Nora and the others were a little surprised, but they understood the reason after a little thought. Nora's expression softened a little, and after glancing at the people standing in a circle, hesitantly, she said, "You can come to the church, but I hope you keep your voice down. My kids are sleeping." "Of course, as it should." Everyone nodded hastily. Nora whispered a few words to the people around her, then took the hands of Batty and Tina and led them to turn around and walk towards the church. The size of the orphanage is relatively large. The building stands in the very center and has 3 floors, covering an area of 1,500 square meters. The 3rd floor is the children's dormitory, the 2nd floor is the teaching floor, and the 1st floor is the cafeteria. The church is set up on the left side of the main building, and the right side is where supplies and clothes are stored. Along the wide square, led by Nora, came to the church. This church is obviously of Greek style, with candle chandeliers hanging on the vaulted roof, and some ancient Greek characters and murals carved on the walls. The statue in the center was wiped clean, wearing leather armor, riding a horse and holding a spear and shield. It is Athena. Chapter 17. Reaction and ingratiation from countries. The church is also relatively wide, enough to accommodate 100 people. In front of the sculpture, there are more than a dozen rows of benches. There are dozens of people in the group from various countries, but fortunately there are only a dozen people in charge, and the rest are security agents, guarding and waiting outside the church. Everyone sat down on the benches in the first row, and the other people ordered by Nora carried the plate and poured juice for everyone. Because there are no tables, everyone chooses to hold it by hand. After everything is done, Nora and a few others stood in front of the crowd. Bart couldn't see it. Little Bart, who loved his mother's, flashed a golden light in his eyes. Driven by his majestic spiritual power, he saw the soil and gravel on the ground turned into strands of gravel. Finally, the manifold gravel forms several wide, delicate, and beautiful seats, just enough for Nora to sit down. This scene inevitably surprised and excited Nora and the others. As for the others, they were calm. They had seen all the outrageous things before, and the comparison just now was just a small scene. Ms. Nora, I believe you should have understood that Bart and Goddess Athena were chosen. Goddess Athena is benevolent and wants to choose a guardian for the earth. This is the same as the original intention of the United States. Therefore, on behalf of the U.S. government, I would like to express my sincere gratitude here. We will also reach a cooperation intention with Greece and make some contributions to the Greek people. The person in charge of CIA said with a solemn expression, but the embellishments in his words made the heads of other countries express contempt. What is inside and outside the words is that the United States is completely advertised as a saint. How can others bear it? These white people are so shameless. Why don't they know that the United States still has the great ideal of protecting the earth? They see that the U.S. government is engaging in all kinds of hegemony, unscrupulously starting wars for interests, splitting certain countries, and even conducting some biochemical experiments. However, at this time, the heads of other countries will not expose it, but express their friendship one after another. Our East will also reach a consensus with Greece. Our British side, we Russia, all the people present were human beings, and never mentioned Bart and Tina. They knew that Bart and Tina attached great importance to the Nora women in front of them. After searching the information, they also understood the lives of the Nora women. Use an easy way to gain favor. Seeing that everyone is increasing their efforts to improve life in Greece, especially for the group of orphans living in Greece, Nora is happy but also a little bit embarrassed. She understands that these are not for nothing. She pulled Bart and Tina, faced everyone's eyes, and said in a deep voice, I am very grateful for your contribution to Greece, and I understand your purpose. Although Bart and Tina were chosen by the goddess Athena, they need time to grow up. Athena's kindness does not only focus on a certain country, but on the entire earth. I hope you can understand. Nora said it very bluntly, meaning that if you want to win over Bart and Tina, don't think about it. The two children belong to the goddess, and they will only obey the goddess. After growing up, the responsibility is also for the whole world, not for a certain person. National service. The heads of the various countries were not disappointed either. They came here just to gain a good impression and an opportunity. It's a long time, and I can figure out sushi in the future, and I won't be so anxious. Of course, Ms. Nora, please believe us. The human beings on the earth should be for peace. What followed was a lot of flattery, all kinds of descriptions of how beautiful my country is, how simple the people are, and how great the government is. After various brainwashing methods deepened the impression, it was late, and seeing the tiredness on the faces of Nora and the others, they also took leave and left. After sending these people away, the orphanage also returned to calm again. Standing outside the gate, watching the car disappear at the end of the long road, Nora and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Dealing with a group of fine people, they are not good at it. I'm always afraid that they will be taken advantage of by these people, but fortunately they have enough confidence. Bart and Tina are standing behind a god, and these people are indeed sincere. Otherwise, they may really make mistakes in a panic. Bart, Tina, you said that the goddess once asked you to go to the sanctuary to practice. You must step up your efforts in the future, and don't let down the talent that the goddess bestowed on you. Nora stroked the little heads of Bart and Tina and exhorted softly. Batty and Tina were chosen, which completely changed their fate, and even the fate of Greece as a whole. They don't care about the game between the governments. They only have one wish, which is to raise the adopted children to grow up safely. The other is that the Greek people can live happily. This is their simplest wish. The goddess is merciful and does not ask for anything in return, but Nora, who has a loyal faith, will not do so. The most words she taught her children since she was a child are gratitude. Only when you know how to be grateful can you know how to be a human being and understand the meaning of kindness. We know, Mama Nora. Bart and Tina nodded solemnly. Nora smiled and took the two children back to the dormitory. After the two children washed up, they also returned to their own room, lay down on the bed and closed their eyes. The moment when the two children closed their eyes, in an instant, the souls of the two suddenly seemed to come to a space, another unknown dimensional world. This dimension is not the same as the real world. Here is also a vast starry sky. In the starry sky, there is a huge city floating upright, or the kingdom of God. There are countless buildings on this huge continent. The buildings, full of ancient Greek style, are very complete, with wide roads, squares, fountains, mountains and waters, trees, gardens. The scenery is unique and beautiful, which makes people feel relaxed and happy. The most shocking thing is the 12 palaces connected by arch bridges that float hundreds of meters above the sky. And at the end of the palace, there is a huge temple. The two children were full of surprise and shock. For some reason, Bart saw the second palace, and his subconscious mind told him that it was the palace he guarded, one of the 12 signs of the zodiac, Taurus. And Tina looked towards the 8th palace, which was her own, Scorpio. Chapter 18. Sanctuary. Bart, Tina, while shocked, the ethereal but majestic female voice rang in the ears of the two of them. Athena. The two immediately recognized that it was Athena, and they also personally felt the sacred and great small universe that came from the temple. Bart and Tina looked at each other, feet with a light step. The figure suddenly soared into the sky, turned into two beams of light and rushed towards the direction of the temple. With the flying speed of the two reaching the speed of sound, it took a long time to reach the temple. It can be seen how vast this heavenly city is. The temple stands at the end of the zodiac, surrounded by green mountains, waterfalls and rivers, trees, flowers and plants, full of natural vitality. The temple was towering and magnificent, and the two of them fell from the sky and landed on the topmost roof of the temple. The roof, with a diameter of several thousand square meters, is surrounded by 12 huge stone pillars, and the stone pillars are engraved with stories of saint warriors in holy clothes fighting the gods. In the center, holding a golden victory scepter, wrapped in white gauze, and wearing a crown of flowers and laurel, the beautiful goddess has long been waiting. The two fell in front of Kyle, and immediately knelt down on one knee in reverence, expressing the highest respect, and said in unison, "Your Majesty, arise, my children." With a gentle smile, Kyle said softly, and the divine words drove the invisible force to stand up with Bart and Tina. Looking at the two children she had chosen, she stretched out her pure white hands and pulled Tina to the edge of the rooftop. Bart followed closely behind. Looking down at the small, magnificent but empty city below, she whispered, said, "This is the sanctuary, and it will also be the place where you and my soldiers live. In the days to come, you will practice here. Your Majesty, this world doesn't seem to exist in our universe." Bart wondered. With a sixth sense, he can already perceive a lot. This world is obviously completely different from the world of the main universe. This is another dimensional world relying on the main universe. I summoned your souls, so that you and the fighters selected in the future will automatically have the breath of this dimension, and your strength will not be suppressed here. She had found this dimension before, and built the sanctuary by the way. Don't look like this is a very huge project, but it is easy for her. Although Athena is known as the goddess of war and wisdom, she is also in charge of handicrafts, arts, justice, agriculture, gardening, sculptors, etc., including building this one. This dimensional world does not have the breath of other powerful gods or evil gods, and it also has the sun, and the natural environment is even suitable for human habitation. Of course, the magnetic field here is still slightly different from that of the Earth, and the gravity here is at least 10 times that of the Earth. This sanctuary will also become her base camp, housing her army of saints. If there are too many follow-up legions, they can also open up surrounding planets for living and training. The Earth also needs a sanctuary. After all, she has issued a divine word, and saints also have the duty to protect the Earth. Similarly, the existence of the sanctuary on Earth will become a place that people all over the world yearn for, and it is also equivalent to the imprint of people believing in her. "Yes, Your Majesty." Bart and Tina didn't know Kyle's plan, so they just nodded. In addition to the necessary practice, you also need to learn knowledge. Knowledge will become the nutrient for your growth. Human knowledge is also unique. Yes, power and knowledge are the same, and knowledge is also a way to understand the nature of the universe, not just power. Kyle attaches great importance to this point. After all, the leap in life level has made almost every saint fighter a genius. Smiley face. What is the most basic ability to remember anything? And the same is true for comprehension. Any knowledge saint can master it in a very short time. It doesn't take much time anyway. After the confession, the spirits of Bart and Tina returned, leaving Kyle alone overlooking the city. The breeze blows, the white gauze skirt swings, she is waiting. Sure enough, not long after, there was a wave of spatial fluctuations behind him, accompanied by a ray of green gleam. Kyle turned around and saw a bald woman in a yellow mage robe appearing. The gentle face, and those eyes full of vicissitudes and wisdom, seem to be able to see through the soul of people. A necklace hangs on the chest, and the green gemstone that has been opened in the necklace is emitting the light of time. Kyle took a look and didn't care, even though this gem is the most powerful treasure in the universe that holds time. Ancient One came to visit and met His Majesty Mion Gu-E, the Supreme Mage, has guarded the earth for thousands of years. He has resisted countless other evil gods and demons who coveted the earth. He was also so tough that he broke into with a disagreement, and Mephisto, the Lord of Hell, forced him to sign a contract. However, such a great mage, when he saw Kyle, he was very humble. Of course, Gui had to do the same. She is a mage who is talented, sees through, and walks in the long river of fate, but she can't see through Kyle. Her eyes reflect the beautiful figure holding the victory scepter, and the shock in her heart is beyond words. Because she knew very well that standing in front of her was a truly powerful god, an existence that could make her disappear completely anytime and anywhere. From Gui's point of view, Kyle's body contains vast and stalwart energy, which is even enough to easily destroy a galaxy. And there is also that full of divine aura Gui faintly sees through the dark history corner. That magnificent universe, those ancient and powerful gods, the tragic and mighty war of the gods. Among them is this figure. Obviously, Kyle is an extremely mysterious, but very powerful existence, and she cannot afford to mess with her. But fortunately, like Odin, she can clearly feel the peaceful aura exuding from Kyle, and she definitely doesn't want to be an evil god. The guardian who has guarded the earth for thousands of years, the Supreme Mage Gu-E. Chapter 19. Ancient One Kyle looked peacefully at the famous prostitute mage in the Marvel Universe. She held out her hand in an inviting gesture. Gui understood, took a few steps forward, and looked at the layers of art-like buildings below, side by side with Kyle. A beautiful city, like art. Looking down from a high altitude, the visual impact is extremely strong. Even if Gui has seen too many mysteries and ancient architectural styles in the multiverse, he has to sigh the unique beauty of the sanctuary. It has a strong ancient Greek style and is exquisite. Art combined to perfection. This sanctuary is said to be a city, but it is actually a kingdom of God. Regarding Gui's exclamation, Kyle smiled lightly and said, "According to human beings, art is a kind of emotional change of sympathetic nerves, and art is just a form." The words seemed very humble, but they didn't mention too much, but changed the topic. "Your life is coming to an end?" "Yes, I'm tired, and the end of life is more like liberation." Gui showed no fear of this, as the literal meaning, what died was only the body, and her soul would be liberated and detached. Already tired, she was looking forward to this day. She had already made preparations, but now Gui was full of helplessness and disappointment. Her fate had been planned, but at this moment, Kyle's appearance broke her plan. Originally in the style of Gui, if someone interfered with the direction of time, she would choose to correct it. But helplessness is here. Kyle's strength is too strong. So strong that Gui has no hope of winning at all, even with the blessing of the Eye of Agamotto. Fortunately, Kyle does not seem to be a powerful evil god. Otherwise, Ancient One might have fallen into a desperate situation. After all, Dormammu in the Dark Dimension is not the only powerful existence staring at the earth. "Your Majesty, you seem to be different from the Athena I know." After a little deliberation, Gui finally chose to be blunt. Facing the serious Ancient One, Kyle did not evade. "I am Athena, but not the dead one. I uphold war and wisdom, justice and love. I need the earth, but I will bless mankind. Maybe I should retire early." After getting the answer he wanted, Gui calmed down his inner unrest, and even said with a hint of humor. Gui thought about the impact of Kyle's appearance, whether it would be negative or positive, but now in her opinion, the latter has the highest probability. That being the case, she naturally accepted it calmly. After all, there is a powerful protecting the earth, so she can relax a lot. Kyle smiled lightly. This one said she was retiring and traveling in the multiverse, but if something happened to Earth in the end, she would still choose to take action. "Thank you for your clarification, and I will leave. I hope that you will have the opportunity to visit Carmitage in your spare time. I have good tea to entertain you." Gui left the sanctuary. Kyle didn't hold back. She is very clear about the thoughts of Gui and Odin. Both of them know the future fate. Her appearance broke the fate and made the fate unpredictable. It would be strange if the two of them didn't move or think. She would never let Gui and Odin be thought of as kind-hearted people. Kyle knew that if she hadn't been strong enough to make Gui and Odin fearful for various reasons, the two would probably have taken action long ago. Destroy the odd number of yourself? It was also because of his strength that the two of them gave up their killing intent and chose to befriend her. It also made Kyle deeply aware of the importance of strength. She never thought that the strength of her seventh sense would be able to survive in this universe safely. She needs more power. Detach from this universe and look for an opportunity to return to the original world that belongs to you. Kyle slowly closed his eyes, and the surrounding surface gradually emitted a layer of platinum fluorescence, and the small universe in his body was growing at an inhuman speed. In addition to strength, I also need a lot of precious metals to make holy clothes. Fortunately, the information of Godhead has the alchemy to make holy clothes, but I lack some metals. I can convert metal elements, but I still need to have divine metals. Karmatage, hidden in the miracle land of the Himalayas. It is also the place where mages live. The architecture is full of classical style, and the wooden house structure seems so suitable here. On the not-too-big training ground, dozens of young mages are practicing magic. At this time, Gui changed into a white mage robe, knelt and sat in front of the tea table in the main hall, washed tea, boiled tea, and poured tea with a set of movements smoothly. In front of Master Ancient One was an old mage. The scent of green tea rose up, blurring the faces of the two of them slightly. The old man with white hair and long beard took the teacup in Master Gui's hand, took a sip and then took a sip. All satisfied. The old mage put the teacup on the saucer, looked at Gui and said softly, "My lord, have you seen that goddess today?" "I've seen it. How is the result?" "She is more elusive than I imagined. She possesses ancient, vast, and mysterious power. This power once made me see Emperor Weishan." Gui sighed. The old mage was stunned for a moment. Who is Emperor Weishan? That is the ancient trinity of gods on the earth. The source of magic they use today is from Emperor Weishan. And the Venerable actually said that the thought of Emperor Weishan? This caused the old mage to stir up waves in his heart, and he was shocked for a while before he recovered, suppressed the surprise in his heart, stroked his beard, and said thoughtfully, "It seems that the Venerable has already reached a consensus. Although her appearance disturbed fate, her direction may not be a bad thing. I believe that Odin should have reached a consensus with her before me. Let's see, maybe she will bring different surprises to this universe. I'm looking forward to seeing that day." Gui smiled. She was very curious about the strange but very powerful power under her crown, full of awe-inspiring holiness. Chapter 20. New York Ocean View Villa. In the early morning, in a spacious and luxurious room by the sea, on the bed, a shirtless man whimpered and slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were a little confused. At this time, a soft male voice came from my ear. "Good morning, sir. It is 9:15 in the morning. The temperature in New York is 23 degrees. There is little cloud. The surfing conditions are good. The waves are between the waist and shoulders, and the tide time is in the morning 11:15. At this time, in front of the window, the originally dark room opened automatically with the curtains, and information sheets appeared on the floor-to-ceiling glass, full of smart sci-fi colors. "Good morning, Jarvis." The man scratched his messy hair, sat up wrapped in a white bedding, and yawned softly. "What's the itinerary for today?" "Sir, there is no schedule in the afternoon. At 6:50 in the evening, you and Ms. Pepper have made an appointment to enjoy dinner at Winston's restaurant." "Aha! It looks like today is another happy day. Jarvis, help me get that white suit ready." "Okay, sir." While talking, the man got off the bed and walked to the bathroom. In front of the sink, the mirror reflected the most famous rich man in the world, the face of a genius, Tony Stark, who controls one of the largest groups in the world. Tucker Group. "Jarvis, what's the news in the last 2 days?" Tony lazily squeezed some toothpaste with a toothbrush and rubbed it in his mouth, and said vaguely, "According to CAA reports, at 9 p.m. last night, there was a mass shootout on 13th Street, Queens Boulevard. 35 people were killed and 78 were injured. At 12 o'clock noon yesterday, the United Nations and Greece reached a total of 138 cooperation items, and the cooperation amount is expected to reach $738.1 billion US. The night before yesterday, in Athens, the victory scepter of the Parthenon temple suddenly disappeared. Someone saw the victory scepter turned into a total of 13 golden lights and flew in all directions. Military satellites did not capture any of them. According to analysis and speculation, the 13 golden rays are looking for a new saint. Wow, that's really interesting news. Those guys are not profitable. While brushing his teeth, Tony raised his eyebrows while looking at the information on his phone. After brushing his teeth, Tony wiped his cheeks with a towel indiscriminately, put the towel on the shelf, and returned to the room. Jarvis' voice came again. Sir, Mr. Odiba is calling. Tony casually brought the Bluetooth headset on the bedside table to his ear, and after connecting it, he joked, Hey, how did you sleep last night? I heard you found a model. Tony, I want to talk to you. A thick and deep voice came from the other end of the phone. Huh. Otherwise, what are we doing now? Tony walked all the way to the living room and kitchen, took out a carton of milk from the refrigerator and poured it into a glass, took out a bread sandwich and started heating it. Get ready for breakfast today. I'm already downstairs. I didn't prepare your breakfast. Tony clapped his hands, a little surprised. He has rarely seen Odiba in so many years. What is the urgent matter that makes this guy so anxious? Tony guessed that at this moment, the outer door of the villa outside opened automatically, and a burly, middle-aged bald man walked in a suit, with some gray stubble on the corners of his mouth, which proved that the man was not young. Walking into the living room and seeing Tony busy with a simple breakfast on the kitchen counter, the man smiled, turned, and walked to the refrigerator to take out a can of beer. When Tony saw it, he opened his hands with a piece of bread in one hand, with a look of displeasure. Hey, that's the only can of beer I have left. If you want to drink it, you can buy it yourself. Don't be stingy, Tony. I know you don't like to drink this kind of beer. You just forgot to throw it away. It's unique taste. Remember what you said last time? Odiba recalled, and then said with a look of remembering, Siang, like a thick lump of siang? Know that it started as one of the 3 most famous beers in the world. For this reason, its boss still wants to sue you, because you have damaged and slandered it. Okay, I think maybe I need to say hello to the legal department and have a good chat with the boss. Tony was very angry at Odiba's mocking expression, and he didn't want to talk about this topic. Smiley face. After all, he had to eat breakfast, so he changed the subject. So you should not just take the last thing in my refrigerator. Have you had a can of wine? Tony, the board of directors hopes that we can reach a cooperation intention with Greece. Walter. Tony just wanted to take a sip from the glass, but he was taken aback when he heard Odiba's words. What do you want us to cooperate with Greece? Arms. Of course not. People's livelihood, food, soybeans, red wine and everything. Tony will understand now. The sentimental board of directors wants to use money to smash the favorability of the Greek people. The purpose is obvious. He can't understand this situation and sarcastically said, They really know what to do. What do they want? Going to kneel and lick that virgin Athena to get a gift? Rumble, as soon as the words fell, a thunderbolt suddenly flashed across the clear blue sky outside the window, and the thick lightning struck heavily on the mountain wall not far from the Seaview Villa. The powerful electric roar smashed the mountain wall and collapsed, and the dense stones overturned and fell into the sea. But Tony and Odiba were so frightened that their bodies instinctively made a bent defensive posture. Tony, I think it's better for you to shut up. It's not like before. Blasphemy will definitely be punished by God. Odiba glanced at the stone wall that was collapsed by lightning and the holographic projection screen. His eyes were fiery. He turned his head and said seriously, Wow, it seems that our goddess has a bad temper. Although Tony was taken aback, his bad personality still made him complain. Call God directly. You will be touched by God, Tony. I don't want you to be burned to charcoal by lightning that day because of your mouth. Seeing that Tony still didn't care, Odiba immediately gave a warning. Okay, I see. You can do whatever you want with the board's request, but I don't think our group of capitalists will be looked down upon by that goddess, Tony said, his eyes rippling. Is there really a in this world? Chapter 21. Eric and Charles. After getting a satisfactory answer, Odiba left in a hurry, probably because he was afraid that Tony, a blunt guy, would offend the goddess again, and he didn't want himself to be implicated. Tony was a little restless, hurriedly finished his breakfast, and walked down the stairs to the exclusive laboratory on the next floor. Ignoring the rows of luxury cars, he went straight to the U-shaped computer desk and snapped his fingers. In an instant, the entire garage-integrated laboratory lit up, and a holographic projection full of sci-fi colors emerged. Jarvis, find out relevant information about that goddess. In front of him, among the densely packed holographic projections, several holographic projection sections were enlarged. Looking at the information in front of him, Tony stroked his chin thoughtfully and said, Jarvis, what do you think of this goddess? I'm sorry, sir. My algorithm can't analyze the goddess Athena. It can only be judged by one shot. She basically has the power to easily destroy a city-state. Is she really a god? Even the slightest blasphemous thought in my heart can be sensed. Such a power. Tony frowned. Spiritualism? Prior to this, Tony had always been an atheist. He only believed in technology and believed that technology could explain everything. But now, the appearance of Athena has subverted cognition, and Tony is now disbelieving that God has become a reality. But then came the biggest problem. A came to the earth. So are there other gods in the myth? Is the earth still safe? This is already related to Tony's own interests and life safety, so he can't let him not think about it. Tony didn't want to hold a party one day, show off his girls and drink wine. And suddenly a few gods fought out of nowhere, and the aftermath directly blew up the earth. He didn't want to gamble on the odds. Just let him fight against the gods? That would be too ridiculous. Can the most powerful nuclear bomb, the most advanced technology of human beings, have an effect on gods? This is obvious. Not to mention whether you can hit it or not. Even if you hit it, will they die? Since thermal weapons don't work, is it possible to develop weapons that can resist the power of gods from another direction? Equipment? First of all, relying on the most basic information, Athena summoned a thunderstrike of 200 million volts in Athens, so the weapons and equipment to resist this level of thunder must be solved first. At this time, a flash of light flashed in Tony's head. It seems to have thought of something. Jarvis, give me the encrypted record information, and no one is allowed to view it except me. Okay, sir. Maybe it's possible to make an armor, but what about power sources? In the spacious laboratory, I saw Tony frowning, trying to catch the flash of inspiration in his mind. No one knows what kind of inspiration this world-famous rich man and will burst out here and create the technology that will shock the world in the future. Time flies, and a month has passed in a flash. During this month, the goddess Athena and Saint Seiya have become the most mainstream and hot topic in the world. Gods in novels, movies, and myths suddenly become reality, which is a huge gimmick in itself. Especially in Greek mythology, one of the most legendary main gods, Athena. Moreover, when Athena came to the world, she was dressed in a light white gauze, with a wreath of flowers and laurel, with blonde hair and bare feet, holding a golden scepter. That kind of sacred and noble beauty makes men all over the world obsessed with it. This is a real goddess. Although they saw that beautiful face, it was indescribable and indescribable. And the selection of saints is even more eye-catching. Who doesn't want to protect Athena's warriors and lose their mortal bodies? Power makes countless men yearn for it. It's just a pity that in the past month, apart from Bart and Tina at the beginning, there has not been a third saint who has been selected. Perhaps someone has already been chosen unbeknownst to them. It is also worth mentioning that there are many people around the world who have used a series of behaviors such as calling God's name and insulting, and then a thunderbolt in the sky split them into coke, causing believers in the goddess Athena on the internet to curse and gloat. This is no longer the godless world. Blasphemy will be punished by God. If you know this and do this, you really deserve to die. There will always be so many stupid guys in this world. Damn bastard. How dare you disrespect the goddess Athena? Isn't it true that someone regards Athena's kindness as weakness? She is not only the goddess of wisdom, but also the goddess of war. She has experienced countless wars. Her kindness is only for good mortals, not blasphemers who are full of evil. Clap, the tablet in his hand was blacked out. The old man in a windbreaker and a brown helmet casually put the computer on the dry workbench aside. He stood up and walked straight to the center of the abandoned factory. A woman with pale skin and sharp orange-yellow eyes like a cheetah. There was also a burly man in a windbreaker with a square face leaning on the scrapped car, eating melon seeds. Eric, here they come. At this time, the blue-skinned woman and the man seemed to notice something and looked out of the factory. The old man called Eric waited silently. The next second, the sound of footsteps came, and the sound became louder and louder. Finally, more than 10 seconds later, several figures appeared outside the open door. 3 men and women in black combat uniforms pushed a bald old man in a suit in a wheelchair and came in, within 2 meters of Eric. Long time no see, Charles. After scanning the 3 men and women, Eric finally set his eyes on the old friend and said in a low voice. The others watched quietly 2 of the world's most powerful mutant leaders meet. Charles, known as Professor X, looked calm and said softly, Eric, I don't know what you want to do, but that child is innocent. Return her. Charles, Eric laughed, and the eyes that were originally full of memories became sharper. I won't hurt her, but you have to do one thing for me. What? You should know that a month ago, that goddess Victory scepter turned into 13 golden lights and disappeared. Eric whispered. Chapter 22. Magneto's adventure plan. As an old friend and rival, Professor Charles knows Eric very well. Hearing Eric's words, his originally gentle expression immediately became serious, and he had already thought about what Eric wanted to do. Eric, do you know what you're doing? Of course I know, Charles. I need your help. If my plan is successful, the status of mutants will change, and we can live in the light instead of being discriminated against like sewer rats and people are still doing inhumane experiments on the test bench. I won't promise you, Eric. Professor Charles immediately refused sternly. If you offend the gods, we will all be doomed. I won't let you take risks, Eric. Facing Charles's refusal, Eric was not surprised, but shook his head, and his tone became cold. Charles, I'm not discussing with you. You can either help find those selected people, or I will kill the child. Eric, Charles was angry, and a surge of psychic ability spread throughout the factory in an instant. The activation of an alpha-level ability made the air turbid, and the strong pressure caused fluctuations in everyone's minds, and the perspective in front of them faintly began to produce hallucinations, including Mystique and Saber-Toothed Tiger. The two covered their heads with painful expressions on their faces. But Eric was the only one who didn't change, and said indifferently, Charles, you should know that I hid that child myself, and no one knows her whereabouts except me. I put something on her, and I snap your fingers and she'll die. So, what are your options, Charles? For a moment, the atmosphere became solidified. Behind Professor Charles, the Phoenix, Aurora the Storm, and Cyclops Scott gritted their teeth with resentment on their faces. In the hearts of the three, Eric is a lunatic, and now he is counting on the gods. Time passed little by little. Outside the factory, a gust of wind whizzed by. The frozen atmosphere was finally broken, and I saw Professor Charles's voice became a little hoarse. He looked up at Eric and said, I hope you be able to understand the consequences of your actions, Eric. Sighing, Professor Charles still made a choice. He still can't give up on the child. Eric nodded. You can start. I can't do it now. To sense that kind of power, I need to use a brain-wave device. I can wait for your message, but I hope you can reply to me today. Charles shook his head, and Cheen and the three left. Looking at the back of Charles and his group leaving, Mystique took a breath. Charles, who was angry, was so scary that she thought for a while that her will would collapse. She hesitated for a moment and asked, Are there really no problems if we do this? After all, it's about the gods. What is a god? Eric turned his head and looked at Mystique aside. For me, it is nothing more than a more powerful life form. In ancient times, people like us were gods. Remember Apocalypse? When he was in ancient Egypt, wasn't he treated as a by those ignorant humans? She has never been a to me, but a strong person. The weak dare not wave their fists like the strong, but I am not a weak person. I need to borrow her strength, even if there is no calculation. This is just an adventure. Eric looked extremely confident on the outside, but his heart is not as it appears on the surface. He is not afraid of death. He is afraid of gods, but he is afraid of time. He has fought for the great cause of mutants for decades. Even if he has great power, he cannot resist the erosion of time. His grades are getting older, and he doesn't know how much time he has left. The appearance of Athena was an opportunity for him. For this reason, he was willing to take risks, risking the anger of a powerful god, but also to achieve his own goals. He is willing to give everything. Looking up at the blue sky through the broken ceiling, Eric's eyes flashed with tiredness. Far away in another dimension, on the edge of the roof of the sanctuary temple floating in the starry sky, Kyle, who is practicing with a golden victory scepter, seems to have a sense. She slowly opened her eyes. Her noble blue eyes were filled with an indescribable light, and she murmured, Mutants, Magneto, Professor X, Phoenix Girl, are you paying attention to me? Should I say courage or stupidity? What fun! Where there is a cause, there is an effect, and if you mess with the cause, you will suffer the consequences. An alpha-level mutant is not enough to attract her attention. The only thing that caught her attention was Cheen, the host of the Phoenix Force. It's just that she has to stay in the sanctuary to expand her own small universe in the near future. She has no bottleneck on the road before the real God, and of course she will not let go of a minute or a second. And she also felt that in the near future, a big battle was quietly approaching, and she needed to become stronger. Well, without affecting my cultivation, I seem to be able to separate part of my will and choose a body to walk on the earth. The ability possessed by the main is actually exaggerated. The most basic of them is the so-called incarnation outside the body. To put it bluntly, it is somewhat similar to Mephisto. Smiley face. The main body is in the base camp, and part of the soul is in the human world. She can do the same. After all, she has already made the framework for the plan on the other side of the earth, Bart and Tina also need to practice, and they will reach the level of the seventh sense as soon as possible, so an executor is still needed. She can't let the main body go out in person, it's too time-consuming, and the incarnation outside the body is a very good choice. Thinking of this, the scepter in Kyle's right hand lightly touched the ground on the roof. Boom, the golden ripples spread like ripples, and the vast spiritual will instantly pass through the dimension and descended on the earth. This powerful spiritual force naturally aroused the awareness of Odin and Gu-E. The two were a little surprised what the goddess was going to do, but when they found out what Kyle was doing, they stopped paying attention. On the bed of a simple apartment room in a certain city in Greece, the corpse of a girl who had lost her voice suddenly opened her eyes. Brother, this community was sealed off a few days ago and was quarantined. It's uncomfortable. I get up early every morning to do nucleic acid. Chapter 23. Alfred, the girl's skin was very pale. There was no trace of blood on her delicate and pretty face, and her body was very thin. At first glance, it is caused by long-term yin and yang deficiency. At this time, she is no longer the original self, and now she is Kyle. Kyle sat up slowly, lifted off the quilt covering her body, walked barefoot, swayed towards the hall, wearing a white t-shirt and shorts one size larger, as if a gust of wind could blow her down. But every time she took a step, the sluggish aura on her body would dissipate, as if some kind of power had been instilled in her body, and the naked eye could see that the sunken pale skin gradually became rosy and elastic. When she walked to the refrigerator, she had undergone a complete and earth-shaking change. She is no longer the girl who is almost as weak as an old man because of suffering from illness, and has become healthier than an adult girl. Every minute and every second, the body structure of this body is growing stronger at an inhuman speed. Kyle then opened the refrigerator, looked at the few cans of nutrient solution left in it, shook his head, took out a bottle of milk from the side, closed it, walked to the balcony, opened the curtains, and drank drinking milk while looking at the scenery on both sides of the street. The originally gray pupils have turned into her signature noble blue. A miserable and pitiful life, this body still retains some memories. Kyle couldn't help but sigh after browsing through it. He lost his parents and lived hard with the most optimistic attitude towards life, learning to make money, but was hit by illness again, and finally died alone in his room. Middle. The saddest thing is that I don't even have a single friend. Death is also a relief for this girl. Suddenly, Kyle paused. Why do I have to choose a girl even for my avatar? Could it be influenced? Logically speaking, he was a pure man in his previous life, and he transmigrated to become a girl. Because of Athena's godhead, there was nothing he could do about it. But when he chose a second body here, he subconsciously chose a girl again. This left Kyle in deep thought. Sigma, could it be that she has been assimilated? Thinking about it, Kyle couldn't help shivering. Fortunately, she swore that her sexual orientation was fine, and she still liked girls. As for girls liking girls, isn't that a normal thing? Ignoring these details, Kyle drank all the milk, went to the closet to pick out a gray sweater and sweatpants, put on a peaked cap, took his bank card and ID card, and left the apartment. The place she is going to is Morocco. Morocco is a coastal Arab country in northwest Africa where the tourism industry is very developed, and it is considered one of the wealthiest countries in Africa. Morocco is almost all whites, 75% of the population is Arabs, and the other is mainly Berbers. Morocco is the main distribution area of Berbers. Most of the cities here are coastal cities. Therefore, the beautiful scenery has become the business card of Morocco's foreign tourism. Many rich people and tourists all over the world like to travel to Morocco. But like most countries in the world, crime and chaos also breed here. Asila is a small coastal town in Morocco. The town has a very strong Moroccan style. The construction style of the Mediterranean coastal city is white and blue, with a sense of combination of sea and sky. In the scorching sun, on the beach of Asila town, there are countless tourists, men and women who come here to surf, sunbathe, play beach volleyball, a lively scene. Similarly, there are local children here who are working hard to run their own small businesses. Pushing the old small food truck, it sells locally picked fresh fruit and fried juice. But the benefits that the children get do not belong to themselves, but to the local gangs that control them. Alfred is one of them. He is a 14-year-old boy with short, messy brown hair and green pupils. His body is not tall, and he is a little thin. After being exposed to the sun, his skin is slightly dark, which is somewhat incompatible with the skin of most white people here. He is diligently pushing a trolley, selling fruits and juices to tourists. I don't care about the dry lips and a lot of dead skin. He must work hard for his performance today. If he fails to complete the performance, He will not only have no food, but will also be severely beaten. Beautiful girl, why don't you try prickly pear fruit? Dates and olives are also very good, and the price is very cheap. Sir, do you want to try the fruit from the town of Asila? With the noisy hustle and bustle of the beach, Alfred tried his best to sell to tourists. After several hours passed, he sold out the fruits and juices in the trolley until the afterglow of the sunset appeared in the sky. He pushed the trolley to the side of the road, sat on the steps, looked around carefully, and counted the money happily. After finally confirming that the task was completed, he breathed a sigh of relief, took out a bottle of mineral water from the trolley, and drank it in big gulps. After drinking, he wiped his mouth, rested for a while, and looked at the couple and family on the beach playing happily. His eyes couldn't help but feel sad. He should have had a nice and warm home, but the gang destroyed it all. Thinking of the tragic death of his father and mother in the gun battle, he couldn't help gritting his teeth. There is always a chance, and he must take revenge. He never forgot that he had read the quote from Sherlock Holmes. When justice is not served, pure vengeance becomes the only justice. Only revenge is the meaning of his life. While Alfred was in his thoughts, several people came over behind him. Among them, the leader was wearing a black wallet, and a strong man with a tattoo on his neck stretched out his hand and slapped Alfred on the back of the head. Snap! The powerful blow caught Alfred's head off guard and hit the cart in front of him heavily. With a plop, he fell to the ground. Alfred groaned in pain, resisted the dizziness and pain, covered his head and got up, looked at the men with mocking eyes in front of him, suppressed the anger in his heart, and whispered, "Boss, who told you to rest? Get thee out of here when you're done selling your stuff." "Got it, boss." Chapter 24. Death. Alfred pushed the cart all the way along the road to the street on the edge of the town. There is a slightly larger old duplex building in the street. The slightly wide iron gate has been opened. He walked in along the gate. There are two strong men at the gate. After a glance, he doesn't mind smoking a cigarette. Follow the iron gate and put the trolley in front of the shed, which is already full of trolleys. Then he walked into the old building. There was a table at the door. He paid the money, and after counting the number of people who collected the bill, he nodded and said a meaningless sentence perfunctorily. "Good job, boy. Keep working hard tomorrow." Yes, Alfred turned around and walked in without any emotion in his long and narrow eyes. As soon as you enter the old building, you can hear all kinds of noisy sounds and smells. The smell of smoke, the smell of sweat, and the intertwining of scent and rancidity made people sick. Alfred was already used to such smells, so he went straight to the innermost part along the passage. Skipping through the rooms, he walked to the innermost cafeteria. The cafeteria was not very spacious. He ignored the children who looked like walking corpses. He received today's dinner. The dinner was very simple, just 2 pancakes and a mixture of potatoes and radishes. He returned to his bedroom with dinner. The dormitory is not big, with 8 bunk beds, which can accommodate 16 people. He returned to his own bed, and the 16 young children did not speak, but greedily ate their own dinner to satisfy their hunger. Stomach. After filling his stomach in a hurry, he went to the public toilet to take a cold shower. This time point is the most relaxed time for the entire gang. During dinner time, except for the guard at the door, everyone else is eating in the canteen on the 2nd floor. He can hear the chatter from above when he takes a shower. This is also the time when Alfred is most likely to hear the message. This information may play a big role in his revenge in the future. Glancing at the boys who were taking a shower next to him, he accepted the message while taking a bath as if nothing had happened. Remembering a few key and useful information, Alfred wiped his body in a hurry and then went back to the dormitory and lay on the bed. Looking at the hands that were already full of calluses, he took a deep breath in his heart. He was still too young. However, he can find opportunities, he needs money, and he also needs guns. Lying in bed with eyes closed, thinking find your own plan. As for the others, they have already been lying in bed and started to rest, and they still have tasks to do at night. Just as Alfred was thinking about his future plans, there was suddenly the sound of dense and hasty footsteps outside the door, followed by a bang, and the door was kicked open, causing a loud noise. Everyone in the house was startled, including Alfred. Everyone suddenly sat up from the bed, looking at the several strong men pouring in at the door with panic, and saw the leading few strong men ignoring the others, walking straight to Alfred, and Alfred with puzzled eyes. He took the wooden stick in his hand and hit him the head. The latter's pupils shrank, and in the next second, severe pain came from his forehead. The pain almost made him howl. Under the terrified eyes of the other teenagers, 2 strong men kept hitting Alfred's body with sticks until Alfred was covered in blood and couldn't help crying. In the end, Alfred was beaten to the last breath. The burly man held the blood-stained wooden stick and indifferently pulled Alfred's head with his hands, nodded, turned his head and swept around the trembling and frightened teenagers, and said coldly, "In the future, whoever dares to think carefully, then he will end up, you know?" Understood. The teenagers were shocked when they saw the scene, and nodded hurriedly. The strong man snorted coldly, glanced at the young man sitting on the bed next to Alfred and raised his chin slightly. "Boy, you have done a good job. You don't have to do anything these 2 days, and I will arrange for you to do some relaxing things in the future, thing?" "Yes, Boss Samba." The boy's face immediately became excited, and the trace of guilt for reporting Alfred in his heart disappeared without a trace. He had already had enough of this job, and he even had a little disdain for Alfred in his heart, thanks to Alfred talking in his sleep when he got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, letting him know that this guy there is something different. Afterwards, he kept staring at Alfred for a month, and finally made him aware of something abnormal about this guy, and only after he was sure did he find the boss of Samba. The eyes of the other teenagers in the same room flickered, with disgust and envy. Samba ignored him, grabbed Alfred's dying body roughly, and walked straight to a room on the 3rd floor. The room is bright, and the interior decoration is a bit luxurious compared to the 2 floors below. A bald man with a gloomy expression was sitting on the sofa, and Samba brought Alfred to the man. "Boss, that's him." The bald boss had a cigar in his mouth and a gold chain around his neck. He looked indifferently at Alfred, who was bleeding all over his body, and slowly stretched out his hand to pinch his chin with a little force. Alfred slowly opened it. He closed his eyes and saw the man in front of him who once dreamed of killing him. His eyes were full of hatred. "Boy, I didn't expect that I would hide a guy like you under my command. You are very courageous." Smiley face. The deep voice is full of oppression. Alfred looked directly into the eyes of the bald boss and suddenly spit on him. Kicked a few times. The bald boss didn't seem to be moved, but took out a tissue from the box beside him, wiped his face, took a gun from his arms and aimed it at the weaker Alfred's head. In the latter's eyes full of unwillingness and anger, he ruthlessly pulled the trigger. Boom, boom, boom. Blood splattered. Alfred's head and chest had a few more muzzles. The flame in his eyes was extinguished, and finally he lost his voice completely. "I chopped it up and fed it to the dog. By the way, I cut off the valuable organs from his body before chopping it up. It's the boss." A few minutes later, Alfred's body was thrown onto an autopsy table in the morgue on the basement level. Samba walked behind the isolation zone and explained to several men who were eating. Then he turned and left. No one noticed that there was a trace of fire inexplicably on the already dead body of Alfred on the autopsy table. Chapter 25. The phoenix reborn from the ashes. Alfred died with a strong unwillingness, and now he is in a strange place. What catches the eye is the boundless color of blood. The ubiquitous hellfire made him feel like he was in a furnace, constantly burning his soul. He was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking at the devastated, ugly purgatory that smelled of sulfur. He thought of himself. He stood there blankly, murmuring in a low voice, "This is hell? Because I died in vain. Can't I go to heaven? I'm not reconciled. Why did my parents suffer from unwarranted disasters? Why did my originally happy family break up? Why did I receive a warning after I filed a complaint with the police? Why is the world so unfair? Why do I have to go to after I die? But let those villains get so chic." The flame of revenge in his heart was not only not extinguished because he came to hell, on the contrary, it became more vigorous. He hated those villains, hated the policemen who colluded with villains, and hated those who reported him and made him pay in vain. Hatred twisted his mind. But Alfred didn't realize that the smell of his soul, which was already hated to the extreme, attracted the demons and undead in hell. Those greedy eyes stared at Alfred, and finally couldn't bear it anymore, and rushed forward like hungry wolves, tore Alfred's soul with sharp teeth. The latter's soul felt the pain before waking up. He saw the ugly undead pounced on him, and Alfred fell into despair. But the unruliness hidden in his personality made him unwilling to give up struggling even before he died. He stretched out his hand to grab the undead in front of him, opened his mouth and bit the other's neck, and tore off a piece of soul with his last strength, even if it attracts even more crazy eating. Is that the end? The soul became weaker and more transparent. Alfred smiled bitterly and closed his eyes. In hell, the soul also dies. Where else will it go? Or is it completely dead? A thought flashed through Alfred. In a trance, an ethereal voice sounded, as if someone was calling him. It was very quiet at first, but then it got louder and louder. Alfred, Alfred. Finally Alfred heard it clearly. He opened his eyes suddenly. The world in front of him was blank, as if he had come to a beautiful and dreamlike paradise. Under the cherry blossom trees in the sky, a beautiful figure, with those pair of eyes, the beautiful blue eyes, looked at him quietly, full of sadness and kindness. She was wearing a light white gauze, a crown of flowers and laurel on her head, and her blonde hair was dancing in the wind. Alfred looked at her and couldn't help but froze. He had never seen such a beautiful person. For some reason, he felt a kind of warmth from this woman that he had never felt since his parents left. "Are you Athena?" He seemed to remember it. He had seen it on the glass TV in the electrical store along the coast of the town, the legendary who descended to the world. At the beginning, he had prayed and imagined that he could be chosen by the goddess to become a saint, so that he would have the power to take revenge, but unfortunately, the goddess of luck never favored him. "It's just that I didn't expect to see Athena before I died. Is it a hallucination? Have you given up, Alfred?" The red lips of the goddess were slightly parted, and the voice was transmitted to his ears. The gentle girl washed his heart full of unwillingness and anger like a clear spring. A little shy and afraid to look directly into those beautiful eyes, Alfred turned his head, thinking of his past, angry again, so that his tone was a bit dry. "What if you don't give up? I'm already dead." "The Alfred I know. Always he is a brave boy who won't give up." The goddess was not angry, and said with a gentle smile. It was this kind of gentleness that made Alfred unable to express his anger at all. In the end, he could only sigh. "I didn't give up either, but the reality is too cruel and I have no strength." The goddess walked over with strides, stood in front of Alfred, stretched out her white jade hand, and caught a cherry blossom petal in the latter's confused eyes. "I can see the hatred and anger in Alfred, but your heart is still pure." When the goddess said this, she changed the subject. "Alfred, do you know Phoenix?" "Phoenix?" "Yes, that is a legendary bird that does not die. The phoenix. Every time a phoenix dies, it will be reborn from the ashes. I have heard. Yes, death is never the end, but rebirth, Alfred." The blue eyes of the goddess are full of smiles. "Reborn from the ashes? Me?" Alfred was not an idiot. On the contrary, he was very smart, and he recognized the meaning. "Yes, the flames of revenge and the flames of will regenerate the phoenix. Every time it dies, it burns itself with firm belief. Alfred, you too. Your flame has never been extinguished, even in death. Take your revenge, burn your will, and believe in yourself. You, like a phoenix, will be reborn from the ashes." The beautiful paradise was shattered. When I came back to my senses here, it was still the familiar purgatory, and it was still the familiar undead and demons lying on my body and greedily eating my soul. Alfred's eyes flashed the flame that had been extinguished and then rekindled. He seems to have seen a beautiful and resolute phoenix, with raging flames burning on its body, spreading its gorgeous wings, raising its proud head, and singing in the sky. Drain, boom, raging flames erupted from his soul in an instant, and amidst the desperate and unbelievable howls and screams of the greedy demons and undead around him, the raging flames swallowed him up and burned him to ashes. Countless images popped up in Alfred's mind. In the end, it was fixed on a gorgeous and noble phoenix composed of armor parts. "An unbelievably powerful force is emerging," he whispered. "I am a phoenix, I am a phoenix, I am reborn from the ashes of hell." Alfred, boom.